Spitting facts, you gotta live with that. Who got it? Who want it? No problem. We mob it. Who got it? Who want it? No problem. We mob it. Raised in the belly of the beast. There were days where I barely had sleep, but I had to work more than competition. I can't live like the opposition. Living everything I dreamed of, doing everything you think of. The way I work, I'm on the brink of doing everything you dreamed of. Only aim for perfection, ain't no half stepping. I'm gonna take you back, spitting facts, you gotta live with that. Who got it? Who want it? No problem. We mob it. In the city, plenty havoc causing. Do or die, it's either all or nothing. Best believe I'm leaving out with something. Anytime I got the crowd jumping, throwing reds, you know they fist pumping. I'm the king of dysfunction. What would you do if you had my life? Work like me, had them stripes. Would you go hard just to have that ice? Lot of dudes
Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is will you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up. You witnessing a champ in the making, fueled by your passion for greatness. Yeah, but adversity and bad situations meet us in the middle of the paths that we taking. But it's what you do after that makes men. Will you quit or will you stand up and face it? Tell me, do you have what it takes to swing back when this life asks for the fade? Can you tell me you'll adapt to the change when the punch lands and it puts you flat on your face? After you wake, will you stand up and say, get mad, hit back, lit match to the flames? Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is will you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up.
ثاني دوحات تضغط على بالفعل روب المخطوط العراق موجود معانا ليخلص بالفعل تواجد ايسبورت تكسر الوضع تاع اوبا حاليا على خرج لوحده بالصلاه هذا الليد لم يكن في مكان مناسب. سيكتور يا سيكتور يا سيكتور يا سيكتور.
Welcome everyone here to the first super weekend of the PMPL Arabia Fall Split 2022. My name is Highland Wolf and I am excited now alongside you to see which of these 16 teams can perform here in our first weekend of action. If you want to get involved in that action too, be sure to check us out on our social media using the hashtag PMPL Arabia on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and also Nemo TV as well. But it's not just me, of course, it is casting solo. I am joined this time by the wonderful Monica. How are you doing, my friend?
I am so excited for this very first super weekend. I got a first taste of the Arabia region 2 days ago on the last day of the league play, and my gosh, it was so aggressive. It was so much action and definitely impressed me, this entire region as a whole. But I'm ready to see how are these teams going to either keep it up for this first super weekend, or if they're gonna need to play at a much higher caliber to try to get these points, because remember, these points are where it counts and they do not reset, unlike the league play.
Look, it's a higher caliber indeed, and these teams need to step up. Well, what better way to increase their energy than with Monster Energy, our official energy drinks partner for the PMPL Arabia. Monica, I know I heard you get into energy drinks. We talked about favorite energy drinks last time. What would you recommend to me? Because as a new Monster Energy drinks person and potentially person to advertise to, what would you say is like the best flavor?
Yes. I really like the entire Ultra line, which is 0 sugar. Very, each one is maybe 5, maybe maximum 20 calories and such. My favorite one is definitely Peachy Keen. It tastes like peach tea, real great. Just enough, caffeine and stuff. But I really love that flavor for sure.
Look, peach tea sounds good to me, but I think also, Monica, so does, quite frankly, the format of the tournament as well, because these teams too have already gone through our weekdays, Monica. They've fought through their group stage. Now we are on the super weekend in the middle, where the top 16 teams, as we say, are playing for 5 matches each day over this weekend. All the teams will play every match. That is a difference that we've got to keep in mind, and all of their points add up to see who will get into the finals by the end of our first 3 weeks of competition. Also, it's not just a format. And you ask, well, how can you get those points to get into the finals, Monica? It's about getting those chicken dinners, those 15 points in total, the 12 points for second, the 10 for third, and of course, that important one elimination equaling that 1 point per in Monica too.
Yeah, the points here, of course, it's so important to get those chicken dinners like Highland just said, but really those elimination points also really make or break some of these teams. We saw it in league play where we had a team, maybe they weren't able to close out the chicken dinner, but you see that difference. It's only a 3-point difference between first and second, and then a 5-point difference between first and third. If the team can, still get in the late game, still end up in third place, but get a ton of eliminations, they could potentially take more points and get more points than the first place team if they're able to really focus up on those eliminations. So we love to see it. Teams that are really emphasizing positioning themselves to close out the game, but also the ones that are able to play aggressive enough, put themselves in positions where they're able to rack up those elims throughout the entire match.
Yeah, as well, of course, those points equal the prize money, though, Monica, that these teams are searching for. So everyone through the league stage will earn, of course, $2,500. The MVP at the end of the tournament, $1,000. And, of course, that most important stat, though, every game that we play in the Super Weekends, whoever wins and gets that chicken dinner, not only the points do they get, but $1,000 per game as well, and that's going to change your perspective of what these teams are going for.
I think that's going to just really put the pressure on, hey, we really need to keep all 4 players left up alive, because we see some teams that, yeah, they took a fight right off the drop. Maybe they were able to pick up a couple of eliminations, but then lose, 1 or 2 players in the meantime. And that's just really setting themselves up even harder to try to close out the game, right? You always want to have those 4 up. And at the end, we've seen it kind of time and time again, when all things are equal, just having more of those players is going to give you that extra fragging power and that little leg up to close out the match.
I mean, of course, we've got the favourites as well coming into this Super Weekend, Monica. I think Enigma Galaxy definitely stepping up, of course, in our first 2 days of competition, reaching that century mark of the 100 points. We expected, I think, big things from them. I wasn't expecting them to be as dominant a form as we saw them in the first 2 days. So considering that they had been a little bit more laid back when it came to the spring here, Monica, too.
Yeah, they had 1 match, if you guys remember, from the second week league play day in Miramar, that crazy circle that was cut off halfway over on the mountain on the western side. They actually ended that match not only getting the chicken dinner, but I believe it was 13 eliminations, which we were, at the end, Imperium and I, we were thinking, when did this happen? Because last time we checked on this, they were just kind of at 7. It was the last maybe, 5 minutes. They were able to just really rack it up, and they finished out a match with 28 points. So definitely one of the big teams to watch out for. And then, of course, we can't forget about GEEKAY Esports. They had a massive 2 days as well, and they were just shy of the 100 points that Enigma Galaxy was able to get. But we have our beautiful logos. We have all of these are the 16 teams that qualified from earlier this week to compete in the finals this weekend.
Yeah, and these 16 teams, of course, here, Enigma, there being one of them, GEEKAY also stepping up. But I think also we had the other expected favourites at the top of that leaderboard, CONQUEROR, R8 as well. And, of course, that new team that really was formed here for the full split, Major Pride, actually one of our newer organizations, taking that top 5 spot with 71 points through the first 2 days. I actually think that they did have a very formidable group. Of course, going up against the likes of RA Esports, they definitely showed up when it came to what this team could do. Unfortunately, of course, if you are wondering where our 4 other teams are, though, of the tournament, FALCONS, Cur12, SKYROCKET, and VISTA, unfortunately, they did not qualify in onto our first Super Weekend of finals. And if you're wondering, well, what do they have to wait for? Well, it's these 3 days of competition in the first Super Weekend, which they will be sitting out, and they will be back joining us on week 2 later in this month. Of course, again, repeating the tournament, week 2, they're the same, but week 3, keep in mind, we will be playing on Wednesday as well. There won't be a day break between these teams before they head into the finals later in July.
Yeah, definitely not. Then those 4 teams, Falcon, Vista, all of them not making the first Super Weekend, it definitely hurts, but they're not quite out of, they're not, you can't just write them off yet, right? They can still, we've seen teams in other regions, we've seen teams in other PMPLs as well that were able to qualify into finals just off 1 Super Weekend, right? They just had an insane Super Weekend just off of 1 and able to get enough points to make the top 16 for finals. But it's definitely, they're missing out on the 1K prize cash money for a chicken dinner if they potentially could get one. And they're missing out on those points to move up in the rankings for the prize pool for the league play as well. So it hurts, but we might see them in the next Super Weekends if they can turn things around.
Got to see what they can do, but what we will have is a special interview here at GEEKAY Esports to see what they're thinking about coming into the Super Weekend.
مرحبا ستان اجل فريق جيكاي، احكي لي عن احساسك وانت داخل على الموسم القادم من PMPL.
صراحة شعور جدا جميل وتحدي جديد وفريق جديد. إن شاء الله بننافس منافسة قوية.
ان شاء الله. حكيت انه فريق جديد لكن الروستر لحد ما لعيبه قدامى، احكي لي عن ازاي تجمعتوا مع بعض كفريق.
بخصوص تجميع الفريق هالشي كان من سنو هو اللي جمعنا. جمعنا الأربعة، كلمنا شخص جمعنا فريق واحد. أسماء قديمة وعندها خبرة، بس إن شاء الله ناقصنا شوية سينرجي زيادة، وإن شاء الله نكون جاهزين للBMPL السيزون هذا.
طب ستان، هل لحقتوا انك تحصلوا على الوقت الكافي للحصول على سينرجي كويس في الوقت القصير اللي كان الفتره اللي فاتت؟
هلا الصراحة ما في يعني بطولة كبيرة لعبناها نقدر نحكم انه احنا عندنا سينرجي كافي، لكن لعبنا بطولة كبيرة بالسعودية وبدون غيث، يعني غيث عنصر مهم بالفريق، وقدمنا اداء حلو، كنا منافسين يعني على التوب 1، وشايف انه بنقصنا شوية وقت ان شاء الله ونصير ننافس على التوب 1 باي بطولة.
حلو ان شاء الله. لما حكيت التوب 1 فعندك الام في بي في الفريق اللي هو راجنر. هو احساسك كنت معاك ام في بي بطوله الام اي معك في الفريق؟
صراحة شعور جدا جميل، يعني تعتمد على لاعب كبير مثل راجنر والشباب اللي البقية اللي بالتيم.
فريق طموح اكيد، لكن طموحكم وصل لفين؟ حابين ايه اللي تحققوه في المستقبل في السنه دي على الاقل؟
طموح اي فريق عم يلعب بالليفل هذا باللعبة او البي ام جي سي، ان شاء الله انه نكون قد هالشيء.
بس ثاني، في عندك كلمه تحب تقولها للجمهور؟
ان شاء الله نكون عند حسن ظن الجمهور، وجيكي اب.
Welcome back again to the PMPL Arabia Full Split. We just had our interview there with GEEKAY on what they were thinking coming into the tournament and the Super Weekend. Monica, of course, they have big expectations. Do you think that a new organization, like GEEKAY, alongside maybe even Major Pride, they can come up to the top of a hill where really Enigma Galaxy are sitting right now? They're the ones in control.
I think absolutely. No team is completely invincible, right? Like no one is untouchable. So I think GEEKAY, Major Pride, CONQUEROR, the ones that are just kind of right in the shadows of Enigma Galaxy, I think they can really step it up and jump up there. We saw that interview from Satan just now. He is their IGL. You know, I heard he's a bit of a jokester and it sometimes gets him in some trouble. But I think just the personality in the team, I think he is definitely a great leader and can be the one to push his team up and above and maybe take that first place spot in this region.
Yeah, and I think it's that dominance in terms of the leadership right through from Satan, I think has had that success for teams like GEEKAY. And when you look at teams, also the rest of those on the leaderboard, it's all about, I think, that leadership and that coordination that these leaders bring to the team. That's what's so important, is it not? For making sure that you can be effective even when things don't maybe go as to plan as they want to.
Absolutely. It's really it's easy for a team if they're doing well to just keep doing well, right? There's nothing much to talk about. I think it really shows the strong and experienced team, the ones that maybe they don't do well, such as Triple Esports, right? They didn't really do that well the first day. They came into the second day with 9 points, but they're really able to turn it around, play much better, and able to just qualify into the Super Weekend, I believe in about 12th place or something like that out of league play. So those kind of teams that show they're mentally strong as well as strong in game, that they're still able to, just not fall to pieces.
Look, they've got a long road ahead, though. Today, Monica, we started off with our first 5 games of the Super Weekend. We are introducing, though, the all but interesting and spicy, maybe for Eastern Sanhok, going to be in our new edition of our Erangel sandwich. Miramar there being the little spicy sauce you add in second, and Ed Sanhok the lettuce to the Erangel bun, as I like to call it, on either side. Monica, is that what you're envisioning now? Are you getting hungry for these games too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we're all hungry for that chicken dinner, right? Broadcast talent included. But Erangel, the one we all know so very well. 3 of those here. So those teams that are really strong in Erangel, like GEEKAY that land in that Razak kind of area, like Enigma Galaxy that lands in that Pochinki area, they're going to, if you have Erangel down, you're going to do well in this kind of format versus just having the one of Miramar, the one of Sanhok that, if you do well in Sanhok, that's great, but it's only going to be one of the maps played today.
Yeah. I think, though, these teams, they really have to have a more holistic view and capability on getting good results on all of these matches, because keep in mind, these points now, Monica, they do add up to the qualification to the finals in 3 weeks' time. So especially the first chance of these teams to get the points and to really, I think, solidify their position. We've seen in previous tournaments a good result on the first Super Weekend, Monica, can almost guarantee a team coming into the finals just with 1 weekend's points alone.
I think looking, like you said, more holistically, looking at the bigger picture, coming into, say, the second Super Weekend or even league plays and such with a low score on the leaderboards, this kind of rocks your confidence a little bit, right? And other teams are going to be looking at you, looking at, hey, maybe this is a weak link. Maybe this is a real good opportunity for us. If we get a knock, just immediately push them right because they're not going to put up too big of a fight. So you definitely want to kind of puff out your chest a little bit, be a little aggressive, and just kind of deter other teams from thinking you're weak at all.
And I think also when we come to the Super Weekend, we are expecting more from these teams too. You think, yes, we saw the favourites really excel in those first 2 days. We're expecting them to continue to excel, though, in these 3 days, because as we say, this is where the points matter, but this is also where the upsets could realistically happen here, because this is where, as we say, the points mattering, teams that are lower down on those league standings can upset and take games, as we are jumping on to our first Erangel match here, Monica, to see if that can become a reality, or if NIGMA, they're going to stay on top here for the first Erangel match.
I want to point out that Enigma Galaxy is probably real happy about having VISTA Gaming not in the match. We saw a couple times, I think on day one, VISTA even landed with Enigma Galaxy. Even if they didn't really, like a fight didn't really happen, or if they were able to take them out of Pachinki, Enigma Galaxy still lost the time it took to rotate and find a nicer central position within the circle. And we had another game, I believe it was in Erangel on day number 2, where VISTA kind of rolled into Pachinki mid-game and was able to kind of get the jump, took out one of the players of Enigma Galaxy, and just kind of be a thorn in the side for them. So Enigma Galaxy, I think, very happy that they're going to have this city all to themselves for this entire weekend.
And I think it was that change by Enigma, actually, because of course they used to drop into Gatka Fields, and then they shifted over a little bit more to that eastern side and actually targeting some of these teams like VISTA, who were new into the tournament and in Pachinki getting that good result. I think definitely rocked the confidence of VISTA. You saw the result. Of course, VISTA, unfortunately, coming in that last position, it has to be one team. I'm hoping that they can really step up. And I think now is when you look to those other teams that aren't playing, teams like FALCONS here, with this first phase zone going into Yasnaya Polyana, we saw RTG, they've already adapted here. They've taken Yasnaya Polyana, that used to be FALCONS' location really here, and now you have RTG. Are they going to perform where the Yasnaya Polyana Kings, quote-unquote, the FALCONS, aren't here to contest them?
Yeah, you can see the teams here that, highly aware of which teams are not in here. So you have teams like RTG, that they can just completely confidently go into Yasnaya. And then we have like Enigma Galaxy. You see them a little bit more spread out in the general Pachinki area. I want to keep my eyes on 4K that landed down into the kind of eastern side. This was a team that just barely made it into the Super Weekend. They are going to be needing to show the entire lobby that they're not just easy pickings and they're here to stay and hopefully get into the finals later on.
See if they can do just that. Of course, these teams are beginning to centralize through this first phase shift. It's going to be more difficult for some of these squads, of course, down on that more western, southern coastline. Teams like 90th Minute, you're really looking at how can they really rotate here, Monica. It's going to be a tougher game for them. I think you're really looking towards that western coastal line, actually. That is more of an option. Teams like Pride, 90th Minute, they're going to be making that wraparound onto those North Georgia Pole bridges. And then coming, I think, in from that northern side of the Erangel map itself. And you're looking realistically, can these teams now, with a zone like this, utilize these different variations of entrances into phase 1? Because if they are just going to go straight through, I think, that main central belt, cutting through that Roshok side, they're going to be met by a lot more firepower, and that may slow them down and affect them coming future into this game for his placement results.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we've already lost our first player of the match. Triple Esports, another team that I really, really want to see more come out from them. They were the ones, like we said, they just kind of barely made it into the Super Weekends all as well. It was really that kind of last couple matches of the second day that they did get a chicken dinner. They did end up having I think a great performance in one of their Erangels as well. So it's really like majority of their points came from just 2 or so matches versus R8. They did finish out in, I want to say it was a 4th place finish up at the top. So they're sitting a little bit more confidently, a little bit better. So I really want to see how the dynamics do change coming into Super Weekend and just remembering how they performed in the league stages.
Yeah, and I think for R8, certainly one of these teams who got off to races very early on last time in the spring split too, Monica. We know what they can do when it comes to guaranteeing their position. I think it's just that consistency of looking future into a tournament is, can R8 now in the beginning repeat the success that they had in the spring split? But then as we look further into the tournament, I think the storyline will develop of can R8 stay at the top, because keep in mind that R8, when it came to the Super Weekends in the last season, they were on top so dominantly that not even Enigma could take them down. So it's now, can you see that same dominant force that we saw earlier in the year? I'm hoping in some way we can, but the competition itself, keep in mind, has increased so largely coming now into the full split. I mean, there are so much more competition for these other squads too that are also now vying for that top spot against them.
I think some of these teams that have become kind of household names, right? These are the teams that have that global experience, and you're able to see them because they're all at the top, right? We have players from Major Pride that used to be on Unique, used to be on Konina Power, those big kind of team names that have just been in those global competitions time and time again. They're able to bring their experience here, stay cool under pressure, knowing what to do in these tight situations versus teams like 4K, like the Only One, those ones who have only really played in their kind of regional, their experience in PUBG Mobile has been kind of tunneled onto only these teams in the lobby, right? They don't see, or they haven't personally played against all those other teams from the other regions to learn from them and kind of hybrid it into their strategies to apply it to these lobbies.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned 4K as well, Monica, because, I mean, they must be wiping the sweat off their brow to get into that first Super Weekend, because they struggled. They struggled when it came into the spring split last time to get into those Super Weekends, to get those points. We saw them barely scrape their way in on this first Super Weekend. We've seen that from them previous in competitions. But I think that now, are we going to see a 4K that can actually step up and use that time that they've got now to get these points? Because they didn't have this opportunity in the last season. And now that they have this, we have seen little tidbits of 4K on improvement of aggression that we wanted to see from them finally here. I think it's just about cleaning it up, right? As 4K just need to be a little bit more clean in the execution of these strategies, because they have the ideas down. The execution, as we say, just isn't quite there yet.
We were kind of joking before Imperium. He had nicknamed a different team in a different region that were playing kind of similar to 4K, kind of the cockroaches of the region, where they would just kind of never, you shoot them, or they're about to be eliminated out of the match, and still they were somehow able to just come back up. I think it was the first game actually of the first day of league plays where they just kind of barely came into the circle, right? They were down into a little bit of a dip, and then they had about 4 different teams roll up onto them on Potato Hill, and somehow they were still able to survive and then rotate into the circle. So time and time again, 4K just throughout the league plays, they're just, I thought they were going to be, going out at this point when they were in a fight and go out early in the match, but they were able to still just stay up on their feet and just somehow keep surviving.
Yeah, I can't exactly remember which team it was that went for 4K on that first game, but I think it was that mistake from the opposite team as well. They went very aggressive, I remember, onto 4K, and actually they utilized that patience a little bit to be able to survive. Now, unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. Spoilers if you've not seen it, but they were able then to at least improve and learn from that. And I think that getting these extra points from the rest of those games, 4K definitely have benefited from. I'm also looking, I think, to some of these other squads that we really are looking into this season. But I think of POWR as well, another one of these newer organizations, definitely had their high moments, but they didn't really have that consistency that we were looking for throughout all of those 10 games previously.
Previously, R8 again, one of those teams that we have high expectations for. We're hoping a lot from them. Kind of a slower rotation coming in now because we have that northeastern circle and they're coming in all the way from the Georgia Pool areas. They're not going to have SKYROCKETs to contend with this time around. You see how much more spread out they are in the entire Georgia Pool area. This first circle about to pop and it goes right out into the eastern side once again. Just a little bit, maybe, 20% of the circle out into the water. A little bit of unplayable land and condensing these teams really as close as possible. I'm looking at that kind of between Yasnaya, between school, between kind of shelter-ish area, lots of little dips there that it looks like everybody is heading towards. I think that might be our first chance for a bit of action in this match, Highland.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that NASR didn't take that hillside just coming into actually the Beryl Hills of Yasnaya Polyana. A lot of these teams, as PMPL Arabia, I think, regional fashion, loving to go towards the center of this zone. This is a zone where I actually think baiting these players into the center doesn't work out as kind. I think they're playing on the edge. These teams could have utilized those edges that are better terrain for these squads much more before it comes into the third phase. At least POWR getting caught out though on that rotation by NASR, who were already situated in that center, and punishing POWR in between not only themselves, but all of these other teams like NIGMA, CONQUEROR, Twisted Minds. They're going to find it very difficult to settle, because if you've noticed, all of that area along that roadside, Monica, is completely open. Yes, you've got a little bit of dip in there inside the flats, but around that, there's nowhere for POWR to go. They are quite literally surrounded.
This is a tricky situation because yes, you're close enough to pick off the fights, and in a just very simple format, if I get a knock, I would just rush and push, overwhelm them and take the team fight, right? But in this kind of situation, it's reminding me of the Kindi when it used to be in the competitive circles where everyone just bombed it into the center, everyone's so close together, you really can't afford to make those pushes because let's say Twisted Minds, they get a knock onto CONQUEROR, right? They're so close to a team like POWR, like NASR, they could just come in third party it, and then there's so many other teams in general area. We're going to have like a fifth POWR kind of situation, so they don't want to be the catalyst of this kind of fight. I really don't see any kind of squads wiped out in this situation. Maybe a couple knocks, dwindle their resources, take their armor and meds away, but I feel like this is still going to be kind of a stalemate in this situation.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised, as we say, these teams haven't taken up some of these further spots. I think particularly towards that eastern coastline. Of course, teams aren't going to go all the way down there because it does decline the terrain downwards towards the ocean, so getting back uphill could be an issue. I think towards actually more of that western side of the zone, seeing what teams like RTG actually are doing, and I think actually what you see teams realistically like GEEKAY are doing here, they all have their own kind of style where they're not taking that central zone, they're just utilizing the edge and they're waiting for these teams in the center to flush each other out. I think we're probably going to see the same thing happen from squads also like R8, who are still working their way through that first phase. Them and also 90th minute, the last teams here to make it into that first phase, or second phase should we call it now.
I do appreciate how spread out NASR is. They have the three kind of down in the dips, holding that compound as well, just on the other side of Yasnaya versus a team like POWR. I know they lost one to the likes of NASR just now, but they're all kind of clumped together in the same dip, right? You can see them on the map like that. They're not getting a whole ton of different information. It's just kind of all stacked on top of each other. So going into this next circle, I think NASR would be a little bit more set up because they're able to get those sightlines all throughout the Yasnaya field as we have the circle. And it's going to be a central one this time around. So NASR, they have a foot in the door, but it's definitely the teams like the only one, like RTG. They're going to be the ones with the most information right in the center of the circle.
It's a tough shift though, and it's all the way into that mansion side. A lot of those teams in the south side, they're going to try to fend their own position off of these intruders coming down from the south end. I think the mansion, really not a place to hold it. You are now looking at these teams trying to take that central belt position. The only other real godly position right now in this third phase is actually still Yasnaya. You see that there's still the edge side of Yasnaya, and is that forced that kind of hospital building there, which is more towards the eastern side of Yasnaya. These teams, I think like RTG, you see them controlling that, and they're gonna be happy as days just sitting in there and saying, look, we know that the rest of this zone is all open. There's not that much buildings. There's not really that many compounds here for us to utilize. Why do we need to go further when we can just play it safe and go for those placement points and maybe come in later and even earn ourselves potentially that $1,000?
The teams that don't overcommit themselves to a spot in the early games are usually the ones that can do the much cleaner kind of rotation into the next circle. They can always assume that that third, that fourth phase shift is probably going to be a little bit more of an extreme one, right? So the teams that kind of stay a little uncommitted, they're just kind of dating around, right? The little spots on the edges of the map before they find out, hey, hard shifted, it's probably just going to keep centering up in this next one going into the late stages. That's the ones that they can keep themselves alive. So I think some of these teams, yeah, they're on the edge. They don't have a central position yet, but they're keeping their options open. And POWR, I think, after losing the one, trying to conserve all of their numbers and just kind of backing away and rotating well around to get into the next one.
Yeah, of course, some of these teams wanting to fight POWR because they then put themselves in a situation where they are also in that bad spot. Yeah, I think also you see the likes of Triple Esports. They also, on that more eastern side of Lipovka, have an excellent hillside spot too, Monica. And they have all of that information of those teams, like OOREDOO, like 90th Minute, making those flanking rotations on where they will be positioned later into the zone. NASR, though, versus Major Pride inside the first fight of the game. And NASR seem to be taking it handily right now as Pride are trying to rotate, but they lose 3 out of 4 of their vehicles and their players. As Milky Way's the only one to escapade into the center of the zone.
This was such a poorly executed push from Pride because they got the first and elimination onto NASR and they pushed up onto and just maybe didn't know where all the players were at and kind of just drove right into the middle of it. And like you said, Milky Way, last one left alive from Pride, so they went from 4 all the way down to 1 in a matter of seconds. So now he's playing survival and they're going to have to reevaluate kind of what happened during this match, as now they're going to be playing as a solo going to the next one. Looks like NASR there. They want to finish their food and find this last player.
They should easily be able to find it. There's no vehicle. They blew that open in Milky Way. They try their best. They find one, return back, though. They got a rock to defend them. They might even, strike that elimination. And Milky Way at least grabbing one extra crucial point for now. But a smoke's going to have to come out. Here, NASR will hold off slightly as they don't get their extra plays. Fast now, Milky Way. They're really looking to leapfrog behind Milky, have that 2 points of pressure. But now, because they don't, you see teams like Twisted Minds who are behind them coming into the zone too. And NASR, they fall for the same issues as Major Pride have done. But Milky Way making a very risky rotation as they are on foot, are trying to navigate a completely open zone down to the sliver of HP. Finally, they will fall, but it's the only one who steal away the elimination.
Yeah, it was a classic example of the predator becoming the prey. There's always a bigger fish in the sea, and that was going to be the Twisted Minds coming on the back of this fight and taking out one of the players of NASR. So NASR now literally following in the footsteps of Major Pride. We saw Major Pride go out already, and then NASR is now the one to wear the hat of being the only one left in, well, only one player left alive. As we now shift onto this eastern side, we do see YALLA trying to ascend into the compound, sharing it with Triple Esports.
4K.
Right, 4K.
Well, they're both trying to share it, but Triple, they can't get in either. Triple, they are going to find one of R8 here as they, in their own fight, take at least 2 down. 19th minute also going to lose Jabal to Dar for POWR, is all of these teams trying to find a position inside. But 4K, they've got one of the best positions here for themselves right now. They can sit comfy, and 90th minute, they're the ones that need to move into them. So for now, 4K are looking very, very strong, but it's whether they can continue to push themselves just a little bit further in onto the zone once this zone continues to shift past phase 5. That's the question that comes to mind, because they may be waiting too long in those future positions get taken up. As R8 are trying to do just that, trying to find their position inside of his zone as they remove away from Triple, of course, taking those eliminations against them.
We actually have a lot of our heavy hitter teams out of the lobby already. That was CONQUEROR that we just saw eliminated out, and I believe it was 15th place, and having Major Pride out too. These were your, I want to say, number 3, number 4 kind of teams from coming in from league play. So it's going to open this up a little bit for some of the teams down below. Potentially, maybe we can see one of the teams at the bottom, you know, Triple Esports, like Twisted Minds, you know, maybe them able to, even the only one able to jump up and start the Super Weekend off real strong. The only ones have a little bit of a higher upper ground than the only one, but still, this is barely on the edge, right? At some point, someone needs to take the spot, and then they will have the easier entry into the circle.
This is mega props to Twisted Minds. They are controlling here the only one inside of this island, but they've done so much scouting. Either that or they are as brave as any of these teams to be able to take themselves on that island fight. Triple, though, they are going to fall. I think they tried to push off camera there onto R8, but Bandar, there with Idol, able to punish that engagement. And because they left Result to try heal as that extra man, they didn't commit. And actually, that's the problem here. The same happening again with Twisted Minds, right? They're not committing all of these players for the forward. They're trying to play on the edge of the zone for the only one. You see Fidan there on the back end, but they are so now weak in terms of player strength. They've lost all of their front line. Fidan almost goes down, and if Dami can't get these other two Twisted Mind players the cover that they need, they are going to find themselves in a very tricky position moving out back into this next phase.
Yeah, the Twins playing on the little bit of cover to save their team, as we see OOREDOO Thunders pushing up and taking out Red actually this time. So this is just, now the fighting is all breaking out. We're about to hit that 20-minute mark within the match. The only one still able to get all four of their players up, just hugging the only one and Twisted Mind all still somehow came out of that with all four players still up, but both of them, the kind of stalemate on the edges of the circle, they're really losing the time to try to rotate now because all the good spots have been taken. And this is kind of a gentleman's agreement, is it not, Highland? Just kind of, hey, let's just separate, go into the circle, and we'll meet you later.
Look, they are both going their separate ways. I think, though, the only one wants to get to this hill. They want to try and get a bit of elevation over Anas. But look at OOREDOO. They're also coming down the backside. Yalla also taking a mega knock there for the only one. That's going to affect them a lot here as they find themselves pincered in the open. Sanji has perfect eye line on top of him. Live Saif as well, all pincering down the pressure onto the only one. They try to find Saif. They will get one back, but you can see the players are ruined. Alush did get back up, but Sayat now the only real one to defend with a health bar. The Twisted Minds also sending one in for secondary pressure.
Alush with one bandage to call his own, and it just wasn't enough health for him, and Sanji able to land the last couple of shots as we see Triple Esports eliminated out of the match. The only one, they just cannot stay up on their feet as they're put down to only one, as Twisted Minds, just no information whatsoever, bombed it into the circle and is trying to find a foothold that they can call home.
And OOREDOO, they might have found that, but again, they are also facing the pressure of teams coming in after teams coming into this next zone. Finally, though, 4K, they look like they're also pushing here onto NIGMA, who had a position. Meanwhile, OOREDOO still fighting versus here Twisted Minds, but Twisted, they had enough. They want to go for the finish, but they can't do so. OOREDOO strike them down, and they will be victorious. 7 eliminations for OOREDOO in a massive first game for them, but who can match that? Is RTG, who have been here inside the edge as now POWR. Pretty quiet all game, but now they have to wake up. They will take down Yalla. They'll take the extra elimination, but GEEKAY, they're infiltrating down on the ground floor.
Definitely the GEEKAY, one of those top teams. They finished out in second place in the league play from earlier this week, and they're down to 3 now. Only team with 0 eliminations now. They just kind of stayed real quiet. Like you said, they're waking up now. They're sharing the building with Road to Glory. So somebody's going to need to eventually take this building because it is not quite within the circle. Both of them are going to have to, fight it out, come into the wall just out in front of them, and then try to take the fight with the rest of the teams in the lobby. But it looks like we only have one team in the circle now, as everyone is trying to converge in.
Both of these teams, I think they're going to try to find that angle. If none of them get that knockdown, initial knock that they're looking for, GEEKAY probably going to leave first. They're going to try Smoke Road. It's up to RTG, Road to Glory, if they can punish that Smoke Road indeed. They're also trying to lay down the way in the future. Of course, OOREDOO are going to have that advantageous position over to both of those teams. You still have the fighting, keep in mind, on the position there of 4K versus NIGMA, who have been both there for an extended fight. No real knocks happening on that that location, but they all need to move into the zone because it's only NASR who actually have a position as that solo player inside. Finally, POWR are going to strike. You can see on the kill feed, down 1 onto 4K, but they strike back down onto Dar. Their Dar falling away, and POWR becoming even more weak.
4K, like I said, one of those teams that's like a cat with 9 lives. They somehow just stay alive and really are good at keeping their players up on their feet. They have one getting knocked. That was a very big mistake because now they do not have the time. The circle is closing in now, and there's no time at all to try to go for the revive. One of them trying to just crash with the rest of his team, and they find just barely, not quite, find maybe a foothold to find their way into the circle as OOREDOO Thunders. They also need to, you know, prioritize getting in the circle now at GEEKAY. The fight is finally breaking out between them and Road to Glory.
That was a crucial knockdown vote from Ragnar. They needed that extra angle safe for them. RTG, they actually stepped out first. They didn't wait for the smoke road to try punish down GEEKAY. They took the onus on them. They made the smoke road. Now Ragnar steps across. Can he find anything though? He's stuck against the wall and Unknown knows it. GEEKAY gonna fall. Now OOREDOO also going to lose one as they pin themselves to the ground. Nowhere to go is the zone in behind them. They have to again move up. This is phase 6 now. Oh boy, does it hurt, Monica. And Sanhok knows it.
This is literally burning, like having a little bit too much hot sauce at the restaurant, and it's just dwindled his health so low. Now he's gonna have to waste some more time. These 30 seconds are so crucial to try to get into the circle. NASR, they sent one into the middle, and he's just holding this little bit of hard cover and waiting to see if anyone's gonna crash up onto him. But these late stages of the game, your focus now is to take the eliminations on those players across the circle, because if you're the first team to try to bomb it into the center, you're gonna get picked off by everyone around you, and that's exactly what happened to OOREDOO Thunders as they're taken out in 5th position.
Road to Glory. They still on the outside of the zone. Monica, they've been a patient team all game. They could be the ones here, as you said, who come in quietly towards the end. Maybe they can find that angle, but they need to get inside the zone. NASR are still the only ones there, and they've got their building, keep in mind. No one can really, from this angle, from this range, really punish actually NASR. NASR for now are going to wait and potentially get a second position here. RTG could try to fire, and as you can see the utility being used to try angle into the building. Equally fighting themselves, so that was a brilliant eye down. Unknown punish, he's immediately R8. And that's got to be all said and done. You got to believe for R8 is they're down to one player. The Hail Mary attempt as the zone comes in. You can see either step down, but immediately knocked and spotted. Unknown the second piece for them. And it's down to RTG. Only to clean up versus one of NASR. What can Ali do? They set down an age, you can see it. They're trying something cheeky here, but can they catch out unaware one of these players? One out the entrance, but they missed for now. They're inside the bathroom, but RTG, they say get off the toilet because it's our chicken dinner. And it's in the kitchen, baked and ready. Road to Glory, the first game of the day goes to them. And the $1,000, Monica, all for themselves.
That was definitely such a way to close out the first game of the Super Weekend, because Road to Glory, they were on the chopping block for the majority of the league stages, right? They were in the bottom 4 up until about middle of the day of the second day of league play that they're able to jump up just barely up into top 16. So way to come around, do a complete 180 and get that first 1K.
Like we said, teams maybe on the bottom of that leaderboard step up now more. We check out those match rankings too, Monica, because of course they did get those important points for themselves, taking of course those 24 with the 15 chicken dinner points, and the R8 squad though still taking second. They did get those 7 eliminations alongside 4K and OOREDOO matching that same amount of aggression. So these 3 teams all picking up those necessary required points in the first game.
NASR, I want to commend them from losing all their play. You know, that was definitely a big mistake, but this was definitely a best case scenario after losing their 3 players to the likes of, I want to say it was Pride. It was a lot of those teams that came off the back off that, just south of Yasnaya. Well, I think he was playing so passively, hiding in the closet, trying not to be eliminated himself. I think he really could have played spoiler, had Road to Glory. I think, how they picked off a lot of those eliminations by those hay bales when RA just had to run out into the open. I think he could have stolen a couple of those, right? But he was just sitting in the corner, just watching the numbers of the players in the match dwindle down. And so I think he could have stolen a couple of those, gotten a couple more eliminations, but definitely well played for all of these teams.
Yeah, I think for sure if NASR had two players, right, they tried to play that a bit more aggressive. They try, as you say, to get those points, but one player, you just want that good, solid placement points. You know that zone has gone into your favor, and for the majority of it, Ali was the only one there. As we check out, unfortunately, that next page, who has to be at the bottom of our first game. Oh, it's got to be 90th minute, the only team to not score any points so far in the first Super Weekend, but surprises from 4, 5 of our top teams here. All for the top 5 teams out of the league stage. CONQUEROR, Major Pride, Enigma, GEEKAY, and Twisted Minds not really taking the cake when it comes to that first game.
I think it's definitely a shock seeing the the big teams in the lobby just kind of, maybe they still need a little bit more of a warm-up game, need to hit those TDMs a little bit to wake up a little bit for this Super Weekend. But I know these are the teams that can play at a much higher caliber and can do much better into the rest of the Super Weekend. So still, great job to the teams that finished out on top, and we're hoping to see a turnaround from those at the bottom.
Look, I think there are still many more games to go, right? Of course, we've only got one down. There's still another 4 more to go today. There's still more Erangel, more Miramar, more Sanhok for all of those teams to make up those points that are required. I think, though, the confidence coming through on that first game is so important for a team and a squad, an organization here to get those points, because the psychological aspect really does play into having the ability to say, we have the skill, we have the ability to get those chicken dinners. Now we can do it again. We can get more points. And I suspect that RTG, they're maybe going to play with a little bit more tempo now that we've seen what they had to show in that first game. We got to see it, though, all again, and what RTG did on our first Best of Our Moments highlights is, Monica, it all came down, of course, to that chicken dinner position that they patiently played.
Yeah, RTG, they are definitely doing great. But let's take a look at the highlights. Is it done? Like, I wasn't sure if you, did I hear you say highlights?
Yeah. That was our, of course, best of-phone moments from the first Erangel game. Monica, still 4 more to go, as we say. In talking about our tempo, to go back to that, actually, RTG, are we going to see Monica then play with that extra little oomph that we want?
I want to say RTG, they of course they got the chicken dinner, but they didn't have to go anywhere, right? They landed in Yasnaya. The circle closed in the field just outside of the police station in Yasnaya. So I think if you look at distance traveled for RTG, it's probably about 50 meters, right? Compared to some other teams in the game. So, of course, I won't take anything away from RTG, but of course, like any team that has a circle land right on them time and time again can have a great game. So I want to see how they can play if the circle's on the opposite side of the map. That's where the 200 IQ rotations need to come out. But I know that they're feeling real good right now.
I actually think we saw those rotations sort of from OOREDOO. I think they already played an amazing game because they did land far away. They landed all the way down on the military base, and then they had to make their way in. So they were eating that blue zone for the first phase. They got in about beginning of phase 3. I think that on one hand does mean you don't have to commit to a position, right? They're outside the zone. They can reroute to wherever the zone does shift by phase 3. But also, they didn't have that much information coming in onto the zone, of course. So for OOREDOO to actually navigate that zone, get those 7 elimination points as well, I think they're really looking like a strong, formidable force from that first match.
Yeah, we also saw R8. They made it into kind of right into the end there. They rotated all the way from, I think it was North Georgia Pole, right? That was one. Raza came, or GK came from all the way over there. So some of them had much more of a rotation. I think it shows a little bit more intent, I guess, a little more ideology to try to get into the circle and make it to the end game. But great stuff from RTG. The next one though is going to be Miramar. So I'm wondering, RTG, how are they going to be able to keep it up for that?
Look, it's not just so Miramar. We want to talk about Spice Monica. It's a one and only Grizzly Bear card collection. And join the card collection draw and win outfits. There's a chance to get all of the pieces of an item in one go, Monica. I mean, are you on board with the bear suit? Because quite frankly, I think that's the prettiest. What kind of do you lean towards?
I think that's intimidating, right? You have a enemy going for a headshot and they get confused and might go for your bear head that is sitting on your shoulder. And you might be able to avoid the debilitating headshot. Am I right?
Yeah, but I mean, that's also technically like IQ. That's forehead skin, right? Because you have 2 heads on you. So then you can bait people thinking it your bear head is your actual head, and then you can come up with your real head and shoot them when you see them with your real eyes. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Also, the hat. I think the hat looks pretty stylish. Or are you more like a helmet player? Because for me, I know that I'm not that great. So, like, if I get caught out, I'm going to probably die anyways in a game. So the helmet's not that useful. Do you tend to go for the helmet, though?
Yeah, you definitely do. And maybe you should have a secondary skin to be a helmet on the bear head. So you can crouch around a corner, third person perspective peek, and just shift your shoulder out a little bit and think it's your head and then make them waste, one of their sniper shots. I think that's the way to go. This is pro meta gameplay coming from us.
Pro meta. Bear anti-AWM meta. That's what it is. That's the skill that we're looking in the PMPL. If you, of course, want to get your hands on it, I mean, it is there, of course, in game. Be sure to check it out. Monica, I also think that when you're looking towards these teams, on a more real note, right, we're shortly heading into Miramar. What was really the team that stood out for you on those first 2 days from this map?
Man, Miramar was just, I saw some crazy circles. If you remember that third circle from day number 2, it was just, the first one was out on the the cliffs on the western side that you can't get up. It was just there. And then for the next probably 5 circles, it kept shifting more and more and more out onto the field to that hill, to the point that there was 50% of the circle into, the 25-minute mark. It was Enigma Galaxy that did end up winning them. They stayed up on that high ground and just picked off all the players down below them. So Miramar, it's definitely, it's not quite as predictable as Erangel, I would say.
And I think also when it comes to the rotations as well, the rotation's so much more important when it comes to these teams coming into that zone shifts. I mean, certainly we saw in that first game, Monica, right? Zones were a factor. Maybe are we going to see that again?
The zone for sure, and like you said, the rotations are a little slower, right? The terrain is a little bit more, like you have to know, I think people don't know every single little dip in Miramar like they do in Erangel, and I think we've all been there. We've gotten our truck or our bus stuck between the 2 kind of ridges of a mountain, and then you're just like beeping your horn, you're calling for, hey, give me a bump to try to, dislodge my car. So Miramar is definitely way slower rotation, so these teams need to be aware and maybe rotate a little bit faster in Miramar.
Look, it's all about the efficiency, but also careful as well, because you can see that there is so much terrain changes on Miramar. These teams, they could also get themselves caught out by being too fast on those rotations as well. So it is about controlling the pace, and I think you are really looking like teams such as R8, who do have much more pace control when it comes to the majority of these maps, are one of those teams that can really make that work to the best effect. I'm also hoping that as we get into our second game, we don't see a Los Leones zone. Personally, I am like the Los Leones curse, Monica, okay? Every time, almost every day, we get a Los Leones finish or somewhere close to this location. I'm confident that in the first day of a super weekend, we're going to avoid that.
You know, I like to look at where the plane path goes, right in that overview, and I was trying to figure out where is this plane path, but it's such a far southern kind of down to the western side. I'm very curious to see El Pozo, where Enigma Galaxy usually goes. Are they gonna long jump it all the way over there? I mean, they probably can't get all the way over there. Have to stop for a vehicle somewhere and then continue driving to their city if they want to go there, or if they have an alternative spot lined up. But we've seen this here before. Miramar, it's so big, right, that sometimes teams they do end up landing right on top of each other, and you might see just kind of a random hot drop in just a compound in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we saw, of course, that El Pozo final zone in the first day of gameplay, actually, in this tournament, where it was Enigma who took that win. And El Pozo is usually a compound where Enigma will go for. So I wouldn't be surprised to, I think, see Enigma try to move over to that location. We are going to see the zone go down to what we saw actually in also the second game of the first day, where it went towards the more south end. And I'm curious to see how this will affect the rotations, because having these teams all see in a zone really like this before, I think it's going to make much more informed rotations for these teams, because they kind of know how these squads already rotate in a similar style of a similar game like this.
A similar game like this, indeed. This is actually quite the similar circle, at least initially, as the very last Miramar these teams played on day number 2 of the leagues. It ended up right into the outside of the Chumacera Mountains, kind of where I want to say that's where Pride is right now. So I mean, this could it's trying to get in deja vu. Like, is this happening once again? But definitely setting themselves up real well in this game so far.
Look, I can't believe you got a Chumacera finish. I was talking to Imperium on the first day. I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be so good if we got a Chumacera finish? I've not seen that ever.
You missed it.
And then I missed it. The one day that I wasn't casting, I missed it. I'm kind of jealous. I'm kind of jelly, I'm not going to lie.
You missed the far western circle as well. So Imperium and I, we were joking that, hey, we got so many western and kind of southern circles. That means Super Weekend, it's all going to be eastern and northern circles coming up just to balance itself out.
But then you're with me, though, so it's just going to go back to Lost Leones. I'm absolutely
You're just throwing
convinced.
us all off. Yeah.
I just drag it. My energy just consumes the zone. It's like forces it down onto the Lost Leones. I mean, I think one time, and I don't know if you know this, Monica, but we had a Lost Leones zone in competition. I casted 7 times in a row. It didn't go anywhere else. Yeah, 7 times. I kid you not. That is how much energy we are sending over to that city.
I'm just visualizing this because, you know, when the circle lands in a city like Los Leones, like El Pozo, it's just everyone is still left alive at the 25-minute mark, right? Because everyone is just, hey, this apartment tower, there's 3 or 4 different teams up on it. You get like kind of a med kit finish or med off finish at the end because everyone is just stacked on top of each other, and it's just crazy.
But the rotations as well, coming into Lost Leones, that's what I'm curious to see, because teams like Rad, teams like 90th Minute actually, who do tend to go towards more of that northern side. Yeah, I mean, Rad up towards that water treatment, 90th Minute, all the way up to Tierra Blanca, they're going to have a massive trek down to get towards those city points, to get into that first phase zone. I think there are those advantages. We saw those advantages from teams like RTG, right, who play on the edge of the zone, who come in later, like OOREDOO too, from that first game. I think for these squads, though, they are different teams, and we want to see, can they also match that ability to come in carefully and respect they won't have that information, of course, later on. And for a map like Miramar, that matters so much more than Erangel, actually, where you do have these high terrain changes in terms of elevation and more openness around these certain locations of compound to compound across the map. So it is going to be harder than Erangel for these teams to try copy that same strategy.
One thing I'd like to point out is I did see 4K, who usually goes to El Azahar, and we saw them have a little bit of a scrap with POWR the other Miramar matches. We just saw them go to Valle de Mar, so maybe they just didn't want to contend with POWR at all. They realized that Kurd 12, who usually goes to Valle de Mar, did not make Super Weekend, so they know this drop is free. Back in the Super, or in the league plays, we had, you know, how every group or every match is different because we had different group plays and such. We had some teams like VISTA, like some other ones that would just kind of, they never had a designated drop spot. They just kind of were able to identify where is it free and we're going to go there, right? Really just scavenging off the drop spots.
I like also that here, GEEKAY, we've actually gone towards more of that Picado side. YALLA were one of those teams as well who did tend to go towards Picado. Even the MEA Championship, they actually did do the same. YALLA, Falcons, those used to be the two teams. But I think as we've adapted, we've seen teams, both of those squads actually change away from Picado. I mean, Picado certainly it has its advantages early on, as we are going to see Rio. I assume it's going to be a flip. Yes, it is. We got it, boys. We got the 360. That's what we were searching for. The vehicle, not too much good a shape, though, but CONQUEROR, they still are eyeing down over Picado, and I think it's smart here for GEEKAY to move away this moment in time. Otherwise, this happens. This is where you see other teams trying to punish you from a distance on those hills that encompass all of that compound.
Yeah, I've never seen someone hit the eject button so quickly out of a vehicle, because we've all been there, right? We're like, oh crap, and we you know, rolled on a rock, it's rolling. You never want to be, I mean, we've all been there. We've been in a car that we thought was okay, and then it ended up exploding and taking you out of the match, because there's no recovery from that. But CONQUEROR rotating on paths, coming down from the General Miramar area, and now garnering all of the attention from GEEKAY as they came up out of Picado. So, I mean, a little stalemate kind of out in the hills here. This is still really early game Highland. 7 minutes past so far.
Do you think that a car has ever got an elimination? So you fall out the car, okay? You get knocked.
It'd be hilarious.
And then the car explodes and it takes you out at the same time. Could you imagine that?
How there's frag damage, like how much damage was done by frags.
Right.
We need vehicle damage, we need blue zone damage, we need like teammate damage, we need all of the stats.
I have a sneaky suspicion that cars in the course of a tournament probably do just as much as some of these players when it comes to all the cars combined versus a player damaged out. I do not underestimate the amount of flips that these players can do.
Well, we've all been in a vehicle, right? We slowed it down. We're just rotating. We slowed it down to the point we thought it was safe to go out, and then you exit the vehicle and you like roll your ankle and then you knock yourself, right? Like it's happened. We're like, oh crap! And then I gotta, waste time. I gotta waste the first aid and bandages to try to heal myself back up. And everyone in the kill feed, they can see it. They're like, what just happened here?
Yeah, it's like one of those comedy movies, right, where you had a little indent on the car and you trip over and you just collapse at the front door.
So dramatic, yes.
I've fallen. I can't get up. Like, please, someone help me. And then your teammate has to step out of the car and then they get shot and it's a complete disaster. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, no, that reminds me of the commercial, the life alert that kind of elderly people wear as a necklace, and it's like, if you're alone, I've fallen and I can't get up, you just press this button and it calls 911 for you. That's what everyone here needs, a life alert necklace.
That is actually what we need. I think that would not go amiss, quite frankly. Petition to add that into the game, the life alert for,
yes,
for
please,
all of these players
please,
to
Tencent
have
hear us
in
and
their
add it. Yes.
Second zone, of course, has got no in-game. Away from Lost Learners, very happy. I will be a proud anti-Lost Learners enjoyer. Is it gone towards actually what is still a very tricky zone here? It's split with that roadside along the middle, but whenever you see a zone like this, you have to remember the center of that zone, Monica, is all flat. It's all open terrain, so it's going to be very difficult and committal on which side these teams take.
I've seen these circles and either in Picado or that warehouse compound just outside of Picado. I've seen the circle end here quite a few times. I think this is the point. Still the second phase. We're still waiting for that kind of hard shift to come out. So the teams are still not quite committing. So GEEKAY, maybe they would want to return to Picado because they know it's a city that is safe, because that is exactly where they landed. But everyone else kind of on the outside still gathering that information. Actually, look at the split from GEEKAY. They are getting... the ones on the southern side getting all the information on OOREDOO Thunders, on the only one Pride rotating. The ones on the northern side, they're able to have the sight lines onto CONQUEROR, onto NASR, really. So I really like how confidently GEEKAY is playing right now.
And I think is this closeness in the hills towards that roadside that you really want right now. I mean, yes, later on, it's a bit more tricky to navigate these sections, but getting close to the road for now, but still using the high terrain that comes on either end of it. I mean, Major Pride are doing the exact same thing on the south side too, Monica.
Yeah.
That won't be a flip. I was disappointed. I wanted it to be that. But either way, I digress. And this hillside in towards the zone, that's kind of where we're looking for the information time to come out. Because if these teams can gather that information and see which teams are crossing in phase 2, particularly as you say when phase 3 comes along too, not only are you going to have a high ground, you're going to have a position that you can solidly take those pot shots onto teams rotating.
Yeah.
You're enabling a more informed rotation for yourselves later on. And those teams who, like potentially Enigma, coming from El Paso later on, they're not going to have, as we say, that information, that accuracy when it comes to making these decisive rotations if they need to later.
This could be very dangerous for the second half of GEEKAY because they parked their cars in a way that they thought was safe, but OOREDOO Thunder they sent a couple out wide. They got the information. They've come back now. The vehicles are perfectly in view, so they could go blow up these vehicles, strand, GEEKAY, these 2 players down here in this compound, and then they'd have nowhere left to go. So Smoker here trying to cut off the angles, coming up a little bit on the high ground, a little bit around to the left-hand side of the compound, and maybe able to chokehold GEEKAY out of this match.
I actually like as well YALLA here, who are rotating in. You see this line that is beginning to form from them. They have now spotted actually triple esports rotating in. Uaz will be the first here, but it's a 1 for 2 right now. They have to try punish, and as they open fire, they let their position be known. Triple don't lose a member, so that's crucial for Sanji. Now that Triple Nova is a player there, that's what you were looking for as Sanhok, because if that doesn't occur, Sanji now comes under fire, as you can see, and it becomes much more difficult for YALLA to try regroup and reposition.
It's the brutal one-shot headshot that puts him down on his knees. So he was able to avoid all of the shots from Sanji while he was in the buggy, but it was just one shot from the back that was able to find his kind of Achilles heel. But Clever returning the fire, giving it right back to Sanji and knocking him instead. So both teams, I believe, are going to have a casualty on either side.
We're going out to Chumacera, Monica, for that third phase. It had
You got
shifted
your-
over.
you-
I wanted it. I wanted
You manifested it.
That's exactly what I did. It was all my fault, but I will totally own up to the responsibility of this, as I want to see these teams take out Chumacera once more. 4K. Gonna control over that south side for now, is all of these teams, like of course Vigified, moved out of that location. YALLA still pinching down from the 2 locations. Clever, and for Clever, I'm hoping they've got that vehicle. They should do by the looks of the other team members moving away from their location. So I assume that it's just Clever here, trying to delay YALLA, of course, from rotating in onto that zone.
Yeah, YALLA, they were kind of the middle of the pack coming into the Super Weekend from League play. But Sanji just cannot catch a break. This is the second time getting knocked. And remember, every time you get knocked, you're going to bleed out a little bit faster and faster. And to be knocked this many times so early in the match is going to be so hurtful for his team. The only one losing one now. And it's going to be 3 players left alive currently, trying to rotate the side. I think just avoid this fight in general.
And this slowdown from YALLA actually really does affect him, because you see now already, they've actually been able to overtake YALLA on their position. So YALLA, they have to come down this hill, they have to come into the open space. You can see there's a couple ridges in front, which is going to make it more complex for them to try fight OOREDOO when OOREDOO have the onus of that zone for them in their court. So now RTG as well, doing something similar here, where CONQUEROR are trying to push in. CONQUEROR slightly more successful though, because they did have that warehouse behind them, so they had a bit more blockade to try work around and reposition. RTG, of course, finding that much more difficult, taking that knock, buys the time now for CONQUEROR to come closer in onto the fight.
CONQUEROR Miramar is one of their strongest maps. We saw them win the first day of the second day of League play as well. That was a Miramar match as they push now into the kind of stables area here. It's going to be a knock with the grenade to open up the fight though. RTG, J9 just staying in, has the Mini 19 watching, giving the cover, but it's going to be CONQUEROR to overwhelm. They just have the numbers advantage and able to take out everyone in the stables, but they may be aware of the Overwatch in the distance.
Indeed, it's NASR behind them too. So it's this quick, decisive cleanup, which is what we're looking from CONQUEROR. They get back in their pockets, but they are still pinned. Keep in mind, RTG all still have a position over, and Revit going down here as NASR coming behind. Grosser taking the shots down to 50% HP. Revit outside won't be able to get in. They're gonna need a smoke to try allow Revit to cross, because NASR do have that angle. You could see that by the extra shots Calico was also taking there. So it means it's going to be much more complex for them to revive and get all 4 members back on their feet. Is YALLA also doing the exact same as all of these other teams have been? 90th minute coming in late to the zone, being punished for that.
Man, you talked about 7 Yasnaya circles in a row. This is 2, literally the exact same area. Miramar is all in the distance of Chumacera in a row. So these 2 teams, I mean, this is the one that Triple D or Triple Esports did win the other day. So maybe they'll be able to set themselves up to maybe do a 2-peat and have it again. But Sanji finally doing something, right? After being knocked so many times, PSLR hitting the knock in the distance as 90th minute, raining down the shots onto YALLA.
In 4K, Triple, they got fantastic positions. Once again, you're really looking at can they, on this offside flank, be able to punish a lot of the plays of these teams rotating in. Now NASR also made a big rotation down. They saw that next shift, and they've gone immediately towards GEEKAY. Now, GEEKAY have been sat here for a very long time. They haven't really been too punished, too threatened for now. But you can see the 2-2 split. If NASR can take down Ragnar Satan, they need to do this to then open up the next front line for them to then punish the other 2. They take down Satan, and it's all of this 4v2 advantage and NASR have. But they now should take out Ragnar. Yes, they do. They lose an extra player in GEEKAY, who I think should have really used that Jeep, forced the players back, get punished for it. They're not inside of the zone. They're now down to 2, and NASR quite easily take advantage of the mistake GEEKAY make.
This is so surprising to have one of our top team, GEEKAY. It just showed that nobody is invincible, right? No one person can just kind of dominate the lobby, and they're down to only 2. 0 eliminations found so far. Actually, similar to the last match, they also did not have many eliminations at all. YALLA has now gone out, the first team out of the lobby, as NASR now diverting their attention, say, hey, we need to focus on getting into the circle now, leave these 2 in our dust as we see the circle, the blue zone is coming in. Yes.
Oh my days, this could be disastrous for them. They take it 2-2, but they lose the entirety of the sports car. NASR, who man fly over the hillside into the next bit of terrain here. They get the building on hand, but it's already occupied here. POWR, they have the extra angle, and NASR, they step outside. They have to go for the 1v1. They take down Dar. That's crucial for Hamam, and he's just saved his team. NASR, once again, though, down to 1 player. And Al-Hahi, the rest of POWR, they know it, and they are here, full sending it in, and Al-Hahi isn't quite done just yet.
Humam, I mean, that's quite a train wreck, right? Like, great, you won your 1v1 from downhill, but it was just, why would you drive right past the compound where we know that some of the members of GEEKAY is located in, and now he's going to have to use his first aids. He's only got 3 of them out in the blue zone. Vehicle almost out of commission as RTG, the team that did get the first chicken dinner of the day, does go out now. GEEKAY, though, coming on the tail of where these teams are kind of all centered up on that eastern side.
In for GEEKAY, they come in behind. NASR also made a mistake, right? They didn't finish off the team behind them. GEEKAY slowly walked in, and they just easily punished based off of the mistakes. They got those extra knocks initially. Quite frankly, POWR did the rest of what they needed to do. The only problem for these teams is you can see the zone. They got to move in, and they got to move in across that roadside. It comes down into almost a ravine between this hill and the next across the roadside. Pride, they're going to be able to punish a lot here. And I think also here, the other team, they really can take advantage of this location. Quite frankly, is the only one. The only one have a fantastic spot on this south front.
Yeah. Hamadi is still able to survive here. Somehow they only started with 3. I think that was a mishap here. But Enigma Galaxy not quite playing to how we know they can play. They had kind of a disastrous game the first game. This one, they're left as only a solo left with 0 eliminations. Not a lot of points found in this first half of the day. But finally, Pride, They've had a lot of time within the city of Chumasera, now need to descend the mountain, find their way into the circle. We have YALLA, though, 90th minute, steamrolling up onto them and taking out 2 of their members.
90th gonna slip, the only one as well, losing the members. Yasan, how do they turn this around? The only one they looked like they had this position, but they were split. One just trying to defend against 3 different squads, Monica, on that eastern front line of the zone. And now Ziad. Oh, that's a beautiful ball. If he can find it, looks for it, but no, he cannot. Ziad does not get it, and that is crucial. It is now 90th minute. They're going to make the revives, and he is all on his lonesome against a full rage of 90th.
It seemed a little bit of a mishap being so split this late in the game, as now Ziad, I mean, he almost had a 1 versus 3, was able to knock 2 of them, but was Imad is going to be the one to finally eliminate this one player of the only one out. We have the Conquerors, again, so strong on Miramar, hugging that northern side. The circle shifted right onto them, and they're going to have the skinny side of the circle. They've got nobody on their backs and able to defend from above.
Pride as well, stepping in. That's the eastern front that they needed cleaned out. Is the only one. 90th minute, they do the damage to each other. But here, the final member of NAR, he's there. He takes down one. He looks for the other, but the zone eating NAR alive. And it's that extra damage. It really is an extra player for Hamco. But it's not enough because they go too aggressive. NAR gets it, but he might lose out to the zone. And there he goes. The extra tick as NIGMA steal away the elimination.
At least he was able to find those last couple eliminations before the zone inevitably took him out, but it was Blues on the ultimate squad. White Reds went down to our top 16 teams, Highland Wolf, as we now shift onto 9-8, spraying through the smoke onto the likes of 4K.
And R8, the next contenders with the blue, but you can see it so dire. The later rotation costing them 4K. They just take the extra elimination points, R8, but now 4K have to contend with this zone. And Monica, it's eating up those health bars now as Pride. They are the ones inside the compound. They are the ones with the control. The zone does shift down away from them, so they're going to have to make this move. Now, I think Conqueror and also Pride is whoever makes this quick move first, because getting down into that zone really is where you want to be. You have that mountainside towards the south end. That's a more ideal spot where 4K actually having control. So as much as 4K did have a slower rotation coming in here, is that slow rotation once again, it comes out fruitful for this team, and they get a position that is favorable for them versus the rest.
Yeah, 4K definitely in the advantageous position. They send Darwi a little bit further in on that shack to hold the position as the other 3 are left in the back to prevent 90th minute from just ascending the mountain. Now the fight is about to break out between Conquer and Pride, but it looks like Pride just kind of bunny hopping a little bit closer in the circle, allowing Conquer a little bit of room, but still they're going to be outside of the circle. We have Twisted Minds as well, just rotating right in front of them as the fight now. Nomi, the highest damage player in this lobby this game so far, taking the shots onto Conquer.
Still, they have the angle where they have the edge of this compound. They have retreated back towards it. Twisted Minds taking the extra knock onto 4K removes that third angle that could have potentially been there. Now, what a knock falling. 4K losing that potentially third angle. And as 90th minute punish, it helps here Pride as they will have to now contend against, unfortunately, Twisted Minds also doing the same to them. But they too falling. You can see in the elimination feed, Conqueror do find that one knock against TM as well.
I think this is also just kind of fatal errors coming out from 4K. They really should have been able to hold 90th minute from even trying to come up this mountain, but I think they forgot about them for just a split second, try to come up the hill and focus more on rotating the circle and allowed 90th minute to get a jump on them. I think Twisted Minds also helped a little bit getting some knocks here and there, but Conquer, they still need to get a revive onto 1 as they now have Pride right where they want them. Only 1 player left on his feet, about to be overwhelmed.
Rever knows it. They've got the elimination potentially there. They've got the knock, but Nomi's still there for the information. They have them there. And unfortunately, Milky Way can't get round the corner in time. Twisted Minds stay out there. They have the nade on top. They were thinking the exact same strategy in Conqueror. Yes, they get rid of Major Pride, but Twisted Minds, they are the much bigger target that they need to take down next. And that zone order, meanwhile, because it was a slower fight, is losing the space. They're losing ground because of the blue. And Twisted Minds, if they play it slow, there is no reason why that they can't actually use that blue zone as a fifth man for themselves just to easily take out Conqueror here.
Yeah, Twisted Mind just playing the mind games on everybody in this lobby, right? They just came in and kind of infiltrated the fight a little bit between Conqueror and Major Pride, and they just kind of backed up, let Conqueror clean out the rest of them as they kind of just picked off some limbs here and there. 90th minute now. This is their minute to shine as they've had brought all three kind of right into this Final Four situation. 4K, I don't know how, but they're still alive at this point. They had four. I would have said they were the best setup team to potentially take this game, but they just lost to for almost no reason.
I don't think they're going to get much further, though. 90th minute, they have them. They come over that ridge line. They come into the zone. They are going to be shot down by 90th minute. It's about timing here for 4K. Maybe they can try punish 90th minute coming in here. They can try play spoiler. It's about trying to play for that third position, because the moment they enter up also, Twisted Minds Conqueror. They're going to have eyes on them. Twisted Minds do strike down one. That was the extra one we needed from 4K. Can they find that second one? That's crucial onto Yazan. If they can grab it, but Yazan gets behind the wall in time. Heals back up. Now it can return to fire, but there comes Golden in from the backside. 4K, they found their moment. They get to that third. They get to the second position. Is Conqueror will also be felled by Twisted Minds, but Conqueror, he's on his last legs. Anaconda's already down, and here comes the full power as Badam steps down. Maybe they can find one more elimination point, but Ragnarok's there to stop them, and Twisted Minds steal away the Miramar chicken dinner.
4K definitely had the last laugh in the fight, or the kind of long drawn out fight between them and 90th minute, but Twisted Minds though, I don't think they could have played that any more perfectly. They had so many eliminations. They had all four players left at the end. This is a team that really knows when to put on the aggression and when to back up and let the other teams fight in the lobby. So them at the end, it was just the numbers game, right? They knew there was 5 or 6 players left alive. One of them was not. They know that it's, hey, it's us 4 versus the 1. Everyone just run out into the road and find this last player of 4K.
Right, and we wanted to see also how Twisted Minds were going to fare, because they did have those player changes, right, coming through the season. They lost some of their strongest players, Monica as well, and getting, I think, that important their chicken dinner for themselves. You can see 26 total points for them. 4K also getting those 20 points on top. 90th also doing well. You got to believe that actually in his first Super Weekend so far, it has been almost an upset of these teams that we didn't expect getting those results.
Yeah, just, I mean, this is just the storyline of the first game and the second line. It's just all the underdogs are right at the top, right? 4K, who just kind of sneaked their way into the Super Weekend in that 16th spot from the league play. Finished out in second place, actually, with 8 eliminations, a ton of points. Right. 90th minute, Twisted Minds, they were all kind of down there, right?
Indeed, and I think as well, yes, Major Pride, Conqueror are getting up there. I think Conqueror more so, but there's a massive drop you can see between the 15th and then that 5th position of the 8 points there between those two teams. So Major at least getting some points, Ari at least getting some. But you gotta see, I mean, NIGMA, they're not there. You see, actually, I think decided GEEKAY, again, not there. So there are these consistencies where teams that you would expect to be performing just aren't having the time of they want for these first 2 games.
It's very surprising because this is on the second half of the leaderboards. We are going to see a team that we have such high expectations for, that's going to be Enigma Galaxy. Once again, just in the bottom half, not a lot of points found. It's just so surprising because this is a team that when you think of PMPL or if you think of the Arabia region, you think of this team, right? This is the top contending team that everyone is expecting to perform. It's just shocking. I mean, it's only 2 games, Highland Wolf, but still, what a shocking start for them.
Yeah, I think the Enigma, they clearly have it in them to get to the top. We don't doubt that at all. It's about when that's going to happen, because eventually it does. Enigma, they are going to likely, I think we see get up. We kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because we know the history. We've won, obviously, the PMPL Arabia before in the spring. They've won the MEA Championship. We know what they are, as we say, capable of. I think the only other really change in factor there between game 1 and game 2 also was the RTG picking up their 0 points, Monica. And as we check out those best opera moments, we get to see how, unfortunately, yes, RTG didn't make it, but how the other teams did.
Yeah, just, man, they really could do it. But let's take a look at the highlights now and see what happened in this Miramar match.
And of course, these best opera moments too. I think it begins all with the rotations. Certainly, I think the rotations were something going in. We said were going to be an issue. Monaco, they certainly were, particularly towards that later stages of the game, where it became all about trying to dodge that blue zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the teams that really were able to conserve their numbers into the end were really able to put up those numbers, like 90th minute, like Twisted Minds. All of them were able to put up such a huge fight and able to get those elims, get the position points, and especially shout out to Twisted Minds for getting that second 1K of the weekend.
Second 1K for themselves. I mean, you're talking about now 1K for them, 1K for RTG. Who's going to be the next one, of course, because after these best of moments for Miramar, we're heading back onto Erangel to see if these teams can improve once more. I think we're going to see some different teams. We're not likely to see, I think, the dominance. I think we saw from squad like R8 in the spring season, where we took about, I think, 7, 8 chicken dinners in the first Super Weekend. But if you want at home to get your own victories, you can do so by getting the extra energy on board and use Monster Energy, the official drinks partner for the PMPL Arabia tournament. Monica, you know you love it. I'm getting on board to being a fan of Monster. I didn't really look at them before this tournament, but PMPL Arabia, I'm a changed man. I'm changing inside him.
For sure. I really like how, normal energy drinks come in a 16-ounce can, which is a lot, right? But sometimes if you just want a little bit of caffeine, they have a lot of the same flavors, and they're 12-ounce cans too. So sometimes when I already had a coffee in the day, but I need a little bit more, I pick up one of those 12-ounce cans of Monster.
That's what you need. But also, what we will be needing just now is a short break while we warm up these teams once more, get them into a wrangle on the other side. Welcome back to the PMPL Arabia full season. Myself, Alan Wolf, and Monica alongside you. But what is still there down below too is the Oppo Reno 7 with upgrade performance and upgraded fun. Celebrate your winning spirit with the brand new Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G, the designated smartphones for PUBG Mobile, Middle East, and Africa Esports 2022. Monica, you love it down there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen the Oppo quite a few times in the tournaments. I've got to play on some of the Oppo phones as well at some of the tournaments, so that I got to play around with. So it's definitely such a great device, and I'm so excited to see how these teams are performing, if they're playing with these devices or not.
Look, that's what clearly Twisted Minds had. They clearly were running the Oppos, so that's why they got the chicken dinner. It's just easy math. Like 1 + 1 = 11, right?
Absolutely. Nice math. we should text our friend Professor Tarzan and tell him about that kind of math. I'm sure he'd love it.
I mean, he knows my maths is wonky when it comes to broadcast. I mean, my maths was never great, okay, Monica? I struggled in class, I'll be honest with you. Broadcast is a whole nother level of cringe, okay? Like, it's like, when that little guy comes in on the meme and he comes in and says, "Oh no, clingy!" Like that's my maths when it comes to broadcast.
Nothing puts you on the spot like broadcasting and trying to do simple addition math. Like, oh, the game just ended, they won with 15 points and they had this many eliminations. How many? What is the score that they got? I've never felt so kind of like, wow, I really just can't do math just on the spot like this.
Never been able to count better since I became a caster for PUBG Mobile. At least to about 30. After 30, it gets a bit difficult. Okay, I mean, Max Man would know. But as we jump into our third match here for Erangel, Monica, we gotta say, the RTG now coming off with what has been a nil point for themselves on Miramar Are we expecting them to bounce back here from their kind of shaky flip-flop performance?
I think so. I think that they're saying, "Hey, we won the first Erangel. We did really, really well. It did land right in our backyard. Like they could literally see where the circle ended from where they dropped." But let's take a look at the overalls from just this past. Overall from this past first and second match. So wow, 4K. Remember, they came in 16th position from the league play to qualify into the Super Weekend, and they're sitting nice and pretty at number 1 spot with 0 chicken dinners.
4K were not the team I expected, with all respect for 4K. They've done amazing, but they struggled in the spring season. I think we saw their struggles in the first 2 days, but by golly, did they turn it up. I mean, I said they wanted now to have a big performance that they got into the first Super Weekend. They certainly did that. Twisted Minds also stepping up alongside Road to Glory with their chicken dinners. They also second and third respectively. I think for actually one of those teams that really surprised me as we move further down, though, into that second page of the leaderboard here, Monica, is that we don't see the teams that we expected. Is Major Pride, GEEKAY, NIGMA, all there on the bottom. I think also the other one that I really wanted to highlight, though, that has had 2 pro games, has also been Rod.
Yeah, we have 2 games on our belt, right? This is still well within striking distance of any of these teams. Enigma Galaxy at 3 points right now. They could come back, get a chicken dinner, master number of eliminations that we know they can get, and they can jump right back up into like second, third or so and just put themselves back in the game. It's going to get a lot harder if they keep performing like this into the Super Weekend, and then everyone's played 8 matches like that, and now you have that many matches to make up for points. They need to turn it around now to put themselves back up on top.
Yeah, because keep in mind, in the future, Monica, the next Super Weekend isn't guaranteed. So as much as we expect, I think some of these organizations, of course, to get into every Super Weekend, you do see upsets, right? Falcons, for example, not making this Super Weekend was a big upset coming into the tournament. So they do happen. And I'm sure Enigma will be making work and making adjustments to try solve those mistakes that they have been making. I think for the overall positions, Enigma hasn't been too poor, actually. They've been getting essential positions, and as we check again, the third Erangel match, hitting ourselves onto the battleground, I'm expecting Enigma to, again, look for those centrals positions, look for them to kind of work their way into the zone quite quickly. The only real issue that they've been having as a result of that, though, has been teams playing on the edge, right? And these hard zone shifts that force Enigma to try move when they've already committed to a central position is so much more difficult for them to adjust compared to those teams who can step outside the zone, they were on the edge anyways, and come around from a different side.
Yeah, I think right now the Enigma Galaxy that we're seeing right now is rotating a little bit too late, right? Landing in a position like Pachinki that you couldn't get any more central in the map from there. They're rotating a little late. Like we saw the first Erangel match today, the circle ended up out in that Yasna area, but that first circle we saw a lot of teams landing in or rotating into those dips kind of in the fields between mansion, school, shelter area. They were well after the punch. Landing in a position like Pachinki had a lot of teams over rotating past them because they didn't leave early enough and they were just caught off on rotation and they just went out a little bit too early.
Surprise first phase though here has gone slightly into the ocean, Monica. It's gone down to the South military base. It's always a nightmare when it goes to the South Island for these teams because which way, of course, is it going to go? And I think a lot of priority going to be particularly on this first phase on those bridges. So you're looking immediately at teams like CONQUEROR, like also Twisted Minds and Triple Esports who control both that western and those eastern bridges.
Who's really kicking themselves right now is Triple Esports. I've seen them gone either in the Novo Crates area or kind of up into the Milta Power area. I think they're able to identify Rad is spreading out a little more into the Milta Power area. So we're going to shift into Milta that we know that Kurd 12 that usually goes there is not here. But to knock on Novo, if this turns out to be a military base circle, they could have racked up a lot of eliminations, camping that bridge, setting themselves up, and getting everyone who is rotating on past there.
So in previous zones as well, it is important to note that Twisted Minds have tended to go for faster rotations actually towards that South Island. They tend to, on zones like this, if it does continue second phase to go down there, they will quickly make that shift on the Eastern Bridge towards that main initial village that you have crossing the bridge that you can set up, you can try to camp it from. They tend to put a player onside the hill as well as that off angle. And I think that predictability is something that these teams have to obviously be aware of. They should understand that this is a play that they do make in previous tournaments. Expecting that once again, I think for Triple, though, it's an interesting change to that. Because also Triple being there inside of this Eastern Bridge means that Twisted won't have that control that they're usually used to, as you say, because Triple made that decision to instead go towards the main part of Erangel. The only other change that we're really looking to see is that actually 90th minute sending one of their players over towards that South Island, I really appreciate on the other end of things, because when you look towards that western side, 90th going to have one of the hardest rotations coming into the zone, Monica, and by having that player there, they get the information on the island. They're going to be able to send all of their players by rotation into that South Island too. And even if the zone does shift north, they're just going to make a later rotation, you've got to believe, on either that western or that eastern bridge after meeting on that South Island.
Yeah, I remember when I saw the first time, they're like, wow, was that on purpose that they went out there? But they do it time again. So it is purposely done. There's some intent going on over here, but having one on the military. So they have the entry into either side. He's able to, especially if they need to make a boat rotation down to the southern side, he's going to be able to kind of watch them, let them know which compounds are free, and make sure his team in those boats that really blow up so very easy. I think it's about 40 shots and it's going to be blown to smithereens. Oh, yeah. Make sure his team is safely set up that way. I do want to see, though, Highland, you know that eastern bridge, that kind of red taller building, you're able to put up one player there and have huge sightlines in the general area, and then putting some other teams in that gas station, and then down onto the right-hand side of the bridge, you know, that little slope there that you have sights all into Milta. I think that could be a really good spot for a team like Twisted Minds or Triple Esports in the general area to really control who goes on which side of the map.
Yeah, typically I think for Twisted Minds, they're probably going to split 2-2, right? They're going to do, as you say, send, I think, 2 players towards some of those taller buildings, outlying. Gas station a little bit too, I think, forward-thinking for now. I don't think you need to commit too much to that position. It's more of a position if Triple D try to use those rocks against the coastline, and you try to use that slight dip you can see in the ridge coming on that more eastern front to the bridge. That's when you actually want to send those players towards the gas station, because you can actually answer those teams utilizing that small ridge line and try to punish them as they poke their heads out from that separate angle. Twisted Mind is still going to have access to that. It's about more really stopping Triple from the first step rather than going to step 2 or step 3 when they do get further ahead. If you can use those higher buildings, as you say, to prevent those rotations, to catch them out, that's what you're really looking for. And even if you don't catch them out, it's all about that delay, of course, right? Because other teams, you got to know, are also going to be heading towards these bridges, because they too want to have that variability when it comes to that second phase and where it goes.
We saw this similar kind of circle, similar in that it was half on the main island, half on the military base island, but this last time on the western side, and did end up in the ferry pier area. This time around, I think these players are like, oh crap, not again, because at this point, I mean, it's majority, I guess, is on the main island, but again, a game like PUBG Mobile, you never know where that next circle could go. Most of these teams have stayed on the main island. You know, you never want to be on the main island, shove yourselves all the way to the southern side and maybe lose a player crossing the bridge and then see the circle come back to the main island. You have to cross that bridge one more time. You really want to commit yourself only once to try to go across that bridge or swim or take a boat somewhere there. So most of them are on the main island now. I want to see, though, I mean, we would love to see as spectators, we want to see all the carnage, all the action that happens if it were to shift down into the military base, and that is just everyone sending it across. But I think most of these players, they're kind of betting on it staying up on the main island right now.
NIGMA for now trying to take those pot shots onto CONQUEROR as they do navigate their way across from that western bridge front to kind of moving away towards the east. They're trying to take this main coastal compound as well. Apart from the bridges, you have this more outline jut where the coast does kind of stretch further towards the main South Island point. And it's about that control. NIGMA, they're also sending those 2 players further down as well to that location. They also want to make sure they have that control there as well. But as Modi does now separate, you are actually thinking this kind of readjustment from NIGMA, where they're saying, instead of maybe going for that coastal line, we can still look towards the bridges. It is still early on in this first phase, and it still could stay on the mainland for Erangel. So taking its more beachfront is a compound they didn't, I think, expect to be taken up, but Twisted Minds being here means that they're going to have to take this fight. They come in pretty early, they take down Fadam, which is crucial, but Lord going down too. Freak is a second, there comes a third, and Dami stepping up for the triple, but can Hamodi finally take them down? They're trying their best. Dami finally will be felled, but Enigma, they are in tatters. They will finish off Dami, but they lose the entire squad for it.
That was such a, so Hamidi, you know, he had great, just wow, you know, got knocked all the 3 players of Twisted Minds, but as he went over, maybe it was just too many players crawling on the ground. He focused more on flushing out the players, did not see Annis come down, and did not realize he was getting shot in the back, and that was just Twisted Minds. I mean, I know they're playing real confident now. They're like, wow, we just took out Enigma Galaxy out of the lobby, really just playing at the highest level they possibly could, coming off the back of a win in the last Miramar match, as we do see the circle shifting now onto the main island.
So it is not completely out of the woods yet. I have seen zones that shift back towards the South Island, but we're kind of safe to say, Monica, that it has gone towards the main central part here. Yes. And it's gone mainly towards this Milta front. So Triple are going to look to kind of close themselves together, I think. They're going to look towards more of that front line if they want to be aggressive and try to stop either the only one, or they could also take a step back. In Triple, they need to decide this now, because as teams come down, they're not going to have that luxury. If they want to avoid these teams and the firefight that is about to occur down in this compound, they can try to step further, as we say, towards the coastal line. But then the only other problem is that they are pincered also by Rad, as we mentioned at the start of the game. So Rad being there actually caused a lot more problems for Triple than I would argue all of those teams on the north side do, because it does restrict Triple, and if they do want to be more passive, on where they can actually navigate around that Milta side.
This circle is kind of setting up these teams to play that lumberyard kind of hillside, like up on here. And there's definitely this kind of similar to Miramar. There's just layers and layers of just lands and plateaus, right? It is all open, but there could be someone up on the top of the mountain looking down at this compound who has even higher upper ground looking down onto yet another compound in the distance. So a lot of them are really committing to the central position now. As we look into the farm area, POWR though, one coming a little bit too close, thought he was safe, and it's going to be CONQUEROR Kalaga to pick off one. The vehicle explosion puts him in the ground.
All of these teams now coming further forward, and it's also these teams further outside the zone. Pride, R8, I think the 2 real big teams that are so far into the blue. R8 historically have struggled with zones like this. They don't tend to have as great a performance when you do see zones come to this specific side of Erangel, because they rotate generally later than a lot of these teams, and as a result eat a lot more of the blue. They don't have the time to set up later on. So I am very concerned about R8 making again those later rotations. POWR, they seem to have gone maybe through that more Roshok bridge, so they are going to be there a lot quicker. Unfortunately, as we say, the Yasnaya into the Roshok bridge themselves for R8, they have taken a little bit of a faster rotation being so late down, but it is going to still affect them coming in later.
OOREDOO Thunder is keeping his eyesights at 6 times turned down to a 3 on his M4. Super long distance weapon here. I know Clever, I mean, he's the eyes of his teammates here, right? That everyone else still in the Milta area, keeping the city as he stays on the 3 stack here, having huge visual lines down all of the roads. He's aware of the people here, but I think just getting this information to wherever this next circle may end up going is going to be very, very beneficial for his team, because they have pretty much the central position. If it shifts onto them one more time, they're going to be really able to hold it down and not allot any other space for the teams on the edges.
Yeah, it's all about Triple. They don't make those shots. I think if Triple start firing and making that aggressive moves, they lose a player. they get one player knocked, not even eliminated, Triple are already in a world of hurt because they lose those angles, as you say. They lose that ability to still fire from those different sides. The zone does shift back up north. The only problem this really has for teams is mainly 90th majorly. They're going to have to now take Novo. They're going to have to rotate actually towards the Milta coastline.
Yeah.
I think 90th probably not going to have the greatest of games in the future if I had to predict, because they're going to come in later. They're going to get exploded by all of those teams the moment they reach that mainland. So they're going to have to try tank that blue, I think, as long as possible. Those other teams inside the center of the zone, though, they also need to be careful. They need to try play it as slow as possible. Teams like GEEKAY making these big, bold rotations in, very risky to do so. They aren't entirely towards the center, but you can see they're already trying to attract attention.
And really, this western side of Milta is being such a dangerous zone as POWR. They kind of shoved their way into the city. We saw Triple D do lose one. I think there was the one that was kind of caught a little off guard into the city, and as a result is going to be rotating widely around POWR and try to reconverge with his teammates. GEEKAY, though, coming in from Rozak. We say Ragnar, one of the strongest fraggers in the lobby, knocked out of his car and finished off immediately by the only one.
Not again. Guy, the second slip up of the vehicle, and that'll slow him down majorly. That's disaster for Guy, as now they're forced to take a much further compound from the rest of their team. They lost a vehicle as well, I believe, which is going to be disaster for them. They are going to be permanently now split, and it's going to affect here at GEEKAY when it comes to their power and preventing teams like Triple moving backwards, other teams moving further in onto the zone. But they get a big bold rotation. So on the other hand, as much as GEEKAY have lost that player, they have been separated, they can start to set back a bit. They can start to allow these other teams, as we say, to pick each other off when they are in the center of the zone.
I like the kind of edge of the city that a team like Team CONQUEROR, like Team GEEKAY has taken, because if the circle does shift out of the city, it's hard to rotate out of there, and they're not over-committing themselves to the city, unlike Triple Esports. That's right dab in the center. They're going to have to rotate on past them to try to get in. So no matter where the next circle goes, GEEKAY is going to be set up pretty well to either exit or stay within the city. But here we do have Rad. They're kind of right committed to the coastline of Milta. It could be really good if the circle shifts on this way, keeping their eyes onto Road to Glory.
And Rod, they need a big game. They've not gotten the points either. Yes, NIGMA may be out, but Rod, they still have the chance. Still alive here. They've got themselves down on the coastal line. I think a very comfortable central position. They don't really have to worry about these hardships. My concern is, as these teams all solidify their position, though, Monica, wherever this zone goes next, it could potentially create so many problems for these teams. And it does go so far away.
Wow, I mean, these teams, I mean, it's classic, right? Third, fourth shift, it's gonna hard shift, and these teams on the edges were able to really identify that. I think a team like R8 that we knew came all the way up from North Georgia Pole, they finally are starting to make their way and committing themselves after spending the entire time on the edges. Major Pride also coming up right on the back end side, right on the edges of these lumber yards, having the huge vantage points down as RA is rotating as quick as he can away from these players of RTG shooting down onto him.
But stuck down in the hayfields, that's not where he wants to be. You're really relying now. SK1D1, that majorly split player from IDA, is all the way onto that more eastern line. IDA should fall. It's all on SK1D1 realistically here. Yes, there it goes as NASR will clean up that elimination point and get R8 down to a solo.
Here we have the only one not able to defend from CONQUEROR is able to see that only one player was left in this compound as the rest of them kind of went for the circle. A little bit, I don't know, left them a little bit too late here because CONQUEROR is going to be able to actually lose a couple of them. Sorry, I thought CONQUEROR was able to... Oh, they switched onto the other half of the only one. Okay, so the only one was driven out of their compound. Two of them now, only those two left alive as CONQUEROR happily collect down the 2 eliminations and now can focus up on rotating into this next circle.
And for the only one I actually think that we have a little bit of a clear shot actually coming in. They actually have to navigate these little bits of dips, a little bit of these hills when it comes to the hayfields itself, but they can use these small sheds, as you can see along the line of coming into the zone. It can protect them, it can steady their position coming into that phase 4 shift. But a team like 90th minute, they didn't take that rotation. You can see the issues of why they tried to cross this bridge, why it may fall as a result for it. They do take down OOREDOO Thunders, and it seems to me that they will escape for now, but Smoker is still out on the edge. They lost many players, and as much as 90th minute get away with Hassan, no, they will not even manage that. Yes, they take down Osama, but it's an attrition war that it will affect both of these teams later down the line because they are both now being reduced to very minimal firepower.
OOREDOO Thunders really just waited way too long on that bridge, maybe trying to chokehold 90th minute or just kind of just, I don't know, lob the circle. We're like, we're going to wait till the last 10 seconds to try to rotate and had 90th minute roll up top of them. So it really was a lose-lose situation for either of them, and it's going to be only 2 left as Hassan coming up from the back end side. They completely forgot about him and was able to take out 90th minute out of the match, focusing up onto the eastern side of Milta though. It is a bloodbath. It is all of these teams on top of each other for no real estate at all.
In Power, at least, you have a side where you have those more buildings, you have that more security of the foundations there behind your back. But Power, they still need to get further down the line of the neighborhood. They need to get to the edge because they are still not inside of the zone. Keep in mind, they find at least one of Twisted Minds, which is going to hurt them a lot. Twisted as well, further back even more from the zone, also going to have to make their way forward. Power juggling with the zone though, is Kante going to have to be forced to heal if he don't get out of the blue zone fast enough. OOREDOO is well trying the same, but reduced to fishies, reduced to nothing as Smoker will fall to the hands of Delab.
He's like, no beach vacation for you. I'm going to spot you waddling out into the waters. But yeah, that was just such a disastrous play, losing their players in 90th minute and then finding themselves here to Rad. I mean, Rad is saying thank you very much, collecting up those eliminations as the blue zone is continuing to converge on in Twisted Minds, our team that did win the last match in Miramar, now having a rough go at it as it's going to be one on his feet, trying to run on foot to try to get into this next circle.
And this is a majorly difficult zone, Monica. It's gone down towards Milta Power. The hillside at 4K control is the strength. The only other strength of this zone really is about YALLA here on this compound to have the low ground, but the security of those 4 walls. RTG maybe also have something when it comes to that south high hills as well. But for all of these teams in the side of, well, their compounds themselves towards the west is CONQUEROR fighting versus Triple and Yawaz and Wizard. They try to enter on in. The nade on the back does catch Yawaz. You didn't look at that one, but it's burning inside of the house as they are reduced to flames and ashes. But the zone will help here. CONQUEROR is Yawaz getting healed up, but will succumb to this next phase as much as you take them back alive. Yawaz straight back down again, and Triple will and surely fall to this blue.
This is a similar situation at 90th minute and OOREDOO Thunders, just a lose-lose situation for all. I'd be surprised if any of these teams were able to get out of the city of Milta. Rad just on the edges though are seeing the escape, the great escape from the Conquerors as they try to bomb it into the center. But Rad is going to have to get in as well. The only one finding one of the solo players of CONQUEROR in the shack and does take him back into the lobby.
The only one, no. They're not going to move for now, but they need to move eventually. The zone beginning to close in. They need those extra eliminations. Luffy gets it onto Milky Way Pride. He didn't want that CONQUEROR as well. Going to fall as NASR does take them down, but you can see no vehicle for Luffy means a extremely difficult rotation for the only one. Here is they will also succumb to the zone behind them. GEEKAY as well stepping in, but as we step back to the highlights here, you're going to see about a war of all of these teams against the blue, and it's all about those later rotations has been affecting so many of these squads. And Monica, it's been that not just of 90th, not just of OOREDOO, but every team is Rad. They're trying the same strats as RTG, trying to hold them off at the edge, but they can't just yet. Desha steps down, steps back into the blue. Do they have the HP? No, they don't. No, it has a peak in RTG. Keep themselves alive.
Road to glory, maybe going for another huge game here, but NASR, I mean, they've made their way in. They definitely have all the control in the circle now, as they have all four in, split up a little bit, one watching the north, one watching the south, and not allow any of these teams to wide rotate on in. We see YALLA quickly getting in the cars too, sending two forward first to get the information, to give the call out for the rest to kind of follow on their way. But we're seeing these teams, they're going down as dominoes, and we have only four teams left alive. NASR, remember, they only had one left alive at this point in the first game. This could be their turnaround game.
And for NASR, they've got themselves inside of the zone. It went towards them. It was all about NASR. Can they keep control of the zone though now? Can they make it to that chicken dinner that they need? They've been performing middle of the pack so far for the first two games. This could be their breakthrough that they really need. But you talk about teams who need those points. GEEKAY also alive. GEEKAY also inside of the zone. And it's about can Hope keep themselves alive long enough, because they also direly need these points.
4K, the team that is at the #1 standings right now with no chicken dinner, still with all four players left alive here. This is quite the different game here, because we have three teams all four up. Just the one solo player of GEEKAY Esports hiding at the top of this wizard tower. 4K taking residence down into his basement. He's thinking, I can hear all the footsteps. I'm real scared right now, just laying prone, kind of at the mercy. I mean, he is the only hope for his team, but at the mercy of everyone. Coming up, NASR actually helping him and taking out a couple of the members trying to ascend the stairway.
GEEKAY is all on his own now. It's a solo fight. It's a battle that he needs to play out as the smokes continue to lay themselves down. Hope. He's got nowhere to go, but he does have the hope of a fourth position here as 4K2 slowly losing their members. They are outside of the zone. They need to make it further in. Of course, finally getting in barely to the edge. Darwi is in tatters. Sanhok all sharing hopes building, but it's YALLA who have the players remaining. You have before they tried to full send it in, but NASR's defense is too strong, and Boompa has to go back down.
I like YALLA's position now because they were kind of quiet, right? Like they stayed out into the midst. They have only a couple of eliminations found this match so far, but now have announced their presence to NASR. They're coming up to the hill. They're saying, we're kings of this mountain, and we want to lay down the pain onto YALLA, staying down below. Hope and 4K, the two, so they're like, we're going to play our own game over here while you two have the 4 versus 4 on the hill by the satellite tower.
And it's about that control of the satellite tower too, is whoever controls that line where the satellite tower is towards that zone realistically controls this game. And that's how you can see the smokes there. Yes, they're blocking their own vision, but YALLA, they're also afraid to step out because you can see the spray through the smokes, and as soon as you see those damage indicators, NASR know where the player is and they continue to fire from about that same rough location. It's all about the patience here between these two squads, and they know it, which is why YALLA haven't stepped up. They have waited for the smokes to dissipate, but we have to contend with the fact that NASR, they've stolen the ground away from them now.
Yeah, YALLA, they saw the new circle, like, okay, let's go in the circle, but then they still need to defend from NASR because they're allowing NASR just to kind of run up above them and having that downhill slope. Now Hope has to defend from one coming up, but it's going to be 4K to finish out the wizard tower. Now it's going to be 4K, one player left alive as the fight continues to happen between NASR and YALLA.
4K get themselves into the top 3, but it's NASR here defending a position as Boompa goes in, gets a double for YALLA. They might have just won game of a Boompa's double elimination. Now they control the zone. 4K, they're down to the solo, but they wave hello to Batika, who's completely tried to back end the fight on a knock. Can't do anything though. Boompa's on a tear. Gets the 3Ps. Finally silenced, but the position revealed in YALLA. They know how to take the chicken dinner from there.
Wow, that was just keeping all four. They lost a couple in the process to NASR, but it's really that high upper ground that made and did not break the game for them as they take the third chicken dinner of the day. It's going to be 1K over onto them, and wow, have they made quite the name for themselves. Such a big win in Erangel.
Mega win for YALLA, and YALLA stepping up when they needed to. I think they were starting to fall down on those standings. Now really have circumvented that issue and come up towards that first page for sure with that result. $1,000, of course, going over to them on top as well as we check out those match rankings to see who contested. YALLA on the top of that leaderboard, 22, of course, to them, but NASR still striking back second with 20.
NASR, it was just such a different game from the first Erangel game because remember, they had a solo after losing most of their members a little bit too early, and the solo did finish in second place. So this is just a two-piece second place for NASR, but this time they were able to find all those eliminations and truly end in second place. So love to see them, they saw their mistakes, turned it around, able to make lemonade out of lemons and get that second place. 4K though, this is such a different 4K than we saw in the league play. This is completely different. Did they change their roster completely or something? Because this is not how they played at all.
I mean, 4K are looking absolutely insane for the first 3 games. Consistent results after results. RTG, GEEKAY as well, stepping up on top of that 4th and 5th position, get some extra points, get themselves back on top. Major pride there alongside them, quietly but consistently getting themselves through to that first page of the leaderboard. As we check out that second half though, Twisted Mind slightly further down. Enigma, of course, another disappointing result from them. I have hope for them. They certainly should eventually come back into form. We've seen this before when Enigma kind of give us a scare, kind of tear the heartstrings a bit, Monica, but they came back last time.
Enigma Galaxy, I don't know, maybe they need to drink a monster or something just to wake up and play a little bit better, as we know that they can play. R8 was, like you said, another team that, I don't know, maybe that's just this kind of edge circle rotation just isn't really working for them because coming on from North George all the way down to the opposite side of the map, it just hasn't been so great of a game or day for them yet either.
It's a day, I think, of a quieter rotations that has been successful, Monica, because you see YALLA, again, staying out the way of the firefight in about those 4th, 5th phases, and then coming later in onto the zone, and we've seen that similar situation on Game 2. Game 1 was the same story. Is this what we're really looking at now in terms of getting those $1,000?
Maybe. I mean, this is still too early to call it, right? This is the 3rd match of all the super weekends, right? So these are the points where they really start to accumulate. These points do not reset, by the way, from each weekend of super weekends, and we have 3 total with 5 matches each day. So those are a lot of matches. So even with 3 matches under our belt, we could see a completely different performance from 4K because we're playing the long-term game, right? We could see 4K maybe not able to keep up such a high performance and maybe see the teams at the bottom like Enigma Galaxy finally wake up and start putting those numbers up.
Well, it's all said and done for the 3rd game as we take a short break, but we're going to leave you with the best of moments from Game 3 and YALLA's win there on Erangel. Welcome back once again to the PMPL Arabia Full Split. Myself, Highland, and Monica joining you back for Game 4. But if you want to know how to get your own chicken dinner victories in, well, it's down there below. With upgrade performance and upgraded funds. Celebrate your winning spirit with the brand new Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G, the designated smartphones for PUBG Mobile Middle East and Africa Esports 2022. Monica, we've had 3 games, 3 chickens so far. Sanhok, though, the real deal is up next.
I'm actually really excited for this one, and I think everyone is because we have not seen Sanhok yet in this tournament. We had Erangel and Miramar the first 2 days of league play, and then so far it's just been Erangel and Miramar. So I think this is going to be a whole new thing that everyone's going to watch. And is this going to have similar strategies to last season's Sanhok, or is it going to kind of change up a little bit? But I know Sanhok, it's way, way, way smaller than all the maps we've seen so far, and it's going to be way more action. But let's see the overall rankings. No surprise, 4K still up on top.
4K, I've had a phenomenal day. What a whopper for them. 50 points already. They've got their own here. Chicken dinner, though, from Twisted Minds, Road to Glory, YALLA, all still in that top 5 position, taking those $1,000. And also, I think when you talk about really here, R8 90th, also stepping up on that 6th, 7th position. But it's been not these teams that have been the surprises, though. It's been on more of that second page here, Monica, that have been the upsets.
The upset for them and upset for us that we're seeing Enigma Galaxy at the very, very bottom. 3 matches with only 4 total points to show for it, meaning that as we look, 2 points were just eliminations. So the other matches, they barely qualified or barely finished to a point where they were able to get 1 placement point. So just crazy to see kind of a heavy hitter team like that at the bottom.
Look, it's going to be difficult for him to step back up, but if you want to step back up, well, you can check out in-game the Grizzly Bear card collection, join the card collection draw, and win outfits. There's a chance to get all the pieces of an item in one go. We know what item I'm taking, Monica. We know what item you're taking. Let us know, of course, using the hashtag PMPL Arabia on socials, what item you're getting. Are you alongside me in wanting the Grizzly Bear suit yourself, or is it something else that you takes your fancy? As we're heading in onto the Rumble in the Jungle, Monica, Sanhok is here.
Rumble in the Jungle, indeed. I think wearing the Grizzly Bear outfit maybe a little bit too humid for the jungles of Sanhok, right? I think we'd be sweating in a bad way, right? But very far northern circle to start things off in Sanhok. It is so small, right, Highland, that you can pretty much get to anywhere you want. If we have a team going all the way down to Sami, no problemo. But it looks like so far everyone's just starting to fan out, and I think it's going to be that first circle to really start things off and show how these teams are going to have to rotate.
Look, I think honestly, when it comes to this zone, rotations aren't going to be too much of an issue. I think that we're really looking towards how these rotations are made. And that's been the really difficult thing I think that these teams have found to work out and solve so far in the first 3 games. It's been, the rotation has been obvious. We need to get into a certain way. The timing has been slightly more of a dilemma. What I am really loving to see, though, is YALLA. They've gone back on form. So yes, Major Pride losing at 1 day. You can see the map. NASR do take an extra solo as they did split so far. But YALLA taking boot camp, we've seen this in the past. A YALLA team who love to take the central position. GEEKAY are going to challenge them on it. And so far, YALLA, 2 down to 1.
2 down to 1 indeed. I think GEEKAY, this is the team that can perform but is not performing. And right now, YALLA, this is what, a minute, not even 2 minutes into the match. This was a grab a gun and start taking shots situation as Satan now put onto his knees as YALLA is pushing on up, all the aggression, and they're coming off the confidence of a win in the last match.
Talk about taking control in a fight. You just walk up, run with a nade, and chuck it in the window, and GEEKAY didn't see it coming. Down to only Guy Ragnar is going to fall in YALLA. They held this compound for near on over half a year, and it will not be failed in the first Sanhok match of the tournament.
We did see also a little bit of a scuffle happening between Road to Glory and Triple Esports, found on the edge of the quarry area as Triple Esports now losing multiple members. This is proving very disastrous for this team as Road to Glory. I mean, they had a great first start to the game for the day, and now are trying to get those eliminations back now to get as many points as possible.
Big decisive fights as RTG versus Triple now, trying to navigate round the end. RTG sticking together though, as Triple go for the cheeky angle. Uaz steps forward. Can they find Volt? No, they don't. And it's outside a window. But he gets it. The pot shots, but a HP. It is enough. Gets Volt as well. How does he do it? Uaz outplays RTG.
That was an insane play. Indeed, he had the Vector, the fastest firing rate gun in the entire game. Able to get that first knock. He was dwindled down to 1 HP quickly. I mean, he has that. We talk about trigger control. Let's talk about reload control, because any kind of lesser player would have been, oh, immediately go for a reload there, would probably been stuck in animation and probably would have gotten knocked there. He quickly switches QBZ and just drop shots and finishes off the second player of Road to Glory. So, I mean, their Road to Glory has hit a harsh brick wall at this point with only J9 left alive.
And I love these fights, Monica. Of course, it's the first game of all of these teams in the PMPL of Sanhok. They didn't realize that they may be hot dropping onto each other, and they felt the pain of each other. Triple Esports, they've got Uaz here still alive, which is crucial. They're going to move back towards Clever. Keep in mind, though, Uaz didn't have the healing. RTG, they were trying to go for a little bit of an extra play. J9 just couldn't find it, though, because, again, the smart control of Uaz to use those buildings, to use those walls as cover, gets him back to safety.
Definitely a player to watch for the remainder of this tournament. We have 4K, our top contenders right now, down in the kind of bridge-ish area, slowly kind of across the bridge from cave area. They've got to keep their eyesights on NASR a little bit further north from them, across the bridge a little bit more in the central area. But let's take a look at the repeat of that fight in case you missed any of that action unknown. I mean, he did have that other wide angle, but these teams, they were just so spread out that they're constantly just taking the 1 versus 1 and then 1 versus 2 actually in this point. But great stuff coming out from YWZ3, as we see, again, that infamous one. That's definitely going to be in the entire tournament highlight clip.
That was a crucial point for Triple, because they need these points. RTG were finally stepping back up. RTG now forced to play with only J9. I think the only real rainbow over the clouds for them is that they've got a central position on that zone.
Yes.
They don't have to worry about a rotation in. I still think, though, it's not going to negate away from the fact that J9 is going to be a point of pressure, and the teams can very much easily rush them, even if they are centered later on in the game. So it's going to be about positioning for RTG to try and make sure they're playing more towards the edges, trying to actually circumvent the action that may occur.
Sanhok, just in general, it's very, very hard to rotate. There's much less vehicle spawns, and it's so in the open. It's so, you know, you go into a certain area, you don't know who is hiding behind what rock or what tree, so much foliage to be hiding that you just drive right into the midst. So a lot of these teams, kind of the strategists go in the center, have the spot, and just wait for the circle to continue to close them there, because trying to edge on Sanhok, it's going to be very, very difficult indeed.
I like these rotations as well, actually coming through. They're quite a rotations on the backside. 90th minute are just taking their time, looting up more of this northwestern area. It isn't so contested. That's partly due to, I think, also the plane path has been a little bit more towards that more south, more of that eastern front. It doesn't appreciate from the fact that teams still can drop here, but making that small rotation may have caused teams like Rad to go a little bit further south, as you can see also on that map, have moved down towards the ruins, and leaving it more is a quicker entrance towards the edge of that first phase, and trying to set up, I think, really Rad here as well in the south, like 90th, for these bridge crossings that are going to be onto the main part of Sanhok, and just preparing, making sure they have the information ready, because as much as we know teams aren't there for at least Rad, maybe 90th minute a bit more trouble with POWR on the other side, they don't know that. They still need to do the scouting.
Absolutely. NASR, remember they had an almost chicken dinner in the previous Erangel match. They're really going to need to, I mean, they're feeling it right. Like, we almost got our 1K, but there's no prize money for a second place or a third place at all. So they came up from the cave area. They're pushing themselves through just on the opposite side of the quarry for where that infamous 1 versus 2 did happen before between Triple Esports and Road to Glory. Enigma Galaxy, this is the team that we're all very upset and very shocked at for their performance right now because they're sitting at 4 points in total after 3 matches. So this is the team, if it's, I mean, I want to say now or never, but it's not really because they have so many more matches left to go. But they just really, this is not the start that they wanted to see in Super Weekend.
And it's all about that psychology, of course, Monica. When you talk about teams getting only 4 points, you got to be able to come back, got to be able to bounce back from those type of games. Enigma, yes, they did have an unfortunate game in that previous Erangel match. They could have actually taken out Twisted Minds. Twisted Minds could have fell down in 16th position. It was one of those teams were gonna fall down hard. And unfortunately, it was Enigma. But they've also had previous 2 bad games on top of that. So I definitely think they're going to be struggling mentally for sure. But this is where the veteranship of a squad and an organization like Enigma really does take place. We know what they're capable of, even on a global stage setting just last year or at the start of January this year. So I'm certainly expecting them to be able to, if any organization here in the PMPL Arabia, be able to bounce back here on Sanhok and be able to bounce back on Erangel later.
Definitely lots of expectations coming from their organization, but we are just waiting for this next circle to come on up. It's going to be centered right onto, like you said, Highland RTG. The only one thing going for J9 is that he was in the central position, and fortunately for him, it's going to center on him one more time. He did find that kind of lone building off that cluster of compounds on the edge of Quarry, so maybe he'll be left alone, you know, no one picking on him for a while. The only one, though, they've got their eyesights on R8 and they're looking to take a fight and get those elimination points.
NASR as well, sort of entering on towards that Quarry side. I think Quarry is going to be more of that kind of fighting section. NASR are going to control it for now. It's very particular on where that zone kind of continues to shift, especially in phase 3, especially in phase 4. If it continues to go towards more at Quarry side, I think it's more of these outlying hills that really do have the advantage. I mean, NASR, they have a very tight-knit position for now. I actually prefer the locations of squads like YALLA. I actually prefer the locations of squads here, also like Twisted, who are slightly further back, but then you have more room to navigate and negotiate later in the game if it does come to these hard shifts, as we say.
Twisted Minds. We saw a massive game come out from them from Miramar in the second game, but then just kind of went out a little bit too early, so maybe a little bit too confident in the last Erangel match. But they're definitely, I mean, there's one team we see they can close out the games. We know they know how to play to be able to contend with these kind of top teams here, but let's see if they can turn around after that Miramar match. The only one still, I mean, he got a couple shots under Kaluga. The Conquerors, they had like not the most impressive of days so far. So they're also a team just like Enigma Galaxy that needs to kind of step it up just a little bit more.
NIGMA making that rotation, as you say, 90 is still the only real other team here inside of blue that needs to make a major rotation. They will be able to now as POWR. They get back into that zone phase 2. It opens the door for 90 to be able to cross that bridge now without being camped. So that awareness actually for 90th minute to hold off and tank that blue zone temporarily so that they avoid the potential gatekeep of POWR themselves. Very smart, very small decision, but it's going to help them coming later in onto that game. You also, I think, have to look at a position of more of that eastern side. There are these outlying teams like Pride who, especially coming in onto J9, as we say, can begin to make that pincer. And pincer for other teams coming down from the north end, particularly if they move further forward. But for now, they are playing further back.
Yeah, that eastern side, very wide open. 90th minute, still coming in. They're actually out in the blue zone right here, out in hot team. So they haven't really moved at all. And this is pretty on brand for what 90th minute usually does. Like we saw in Erangel last game, they landed out in that. Primors kind of won on the military base island. They stayed out in the blue zone for the majority of it until they unfortunately came across the bridge, fought against OOREDOO Thunders and were taken out way too early. I want to say it was around 14th position. So here they're just staying out over there. This could be okay if they kind of wide rotate and come over on that northeastern side, maybe identifying that there isn't anyone there, but they might have to rotate through the POWR or to the likes of POWR, through some of these other teams that are right in that northwestern side.
Yeah, and the problem for a team like 90th is a situation the zone is in. They're going to at least have to rotate into that uncomfortable kind of choke point situation where POWR are going to control, where even the likes here of R8 are also going to control in Paradise Resort. It goes up towards there for now. So I think actually the strongest locations that we're really looking at is where R8 have their lower two players split, but also actually the side, I believe, of the only one here is that other team. They have this kind of trifecta on the roads coming in. We have that hillside. I would like him actually to avoid the compound, but move towards the hillside. Gives him a little bit more of an angle to work with when it comes to these players. Like POWR coming in as they take down one at least of R8.
That was very unfortunate. We had R8 who landed in the Paradise Resort area. They had the control of this entire site and just let POWR sneak like a ninja right into their midst and is taking out members one by one by one. I mean, this could be okay for 90th if they come off the back of there and, you know, they see this fight. This could be their opening grace, but let's see how exactly this happened. Yeah, exactly. Just R8 completely oblivious to this angle from Ozzy as he came in really just right next to him and was able to get those shots.
Yeah, not often I think R8 is slightly a lapse in judgment. You have to think for R8, they're kind of looking towards one way, POWR coming around the flank, and they do cost them a player. Ida does get back up. They had that extra support though back inside of the main side of Paradise Resort, but it's going to affect them majorly here. Losing a player like that when the zone comes back towards you is going to create this kind of bounce back effect where a lot of these teams are going to come for your compound. They're going to come look for that safety of the compound where everywhere else is quite far open, much more trickier to navigate. So R8, they may be in this world where teams could potentially try to pressure them, and they don't have that full squad now to be able to answer that.
Yeah, full squad is always your kind of go-to default that you want to have into the end parts of the game. 4K doing so well for themselves, but unfortunately losing one a little bit too early, just kind of digging themselves a little deeper of a hole to try to fight up onto. Looks like they see the sights onto NASR. It's not quite within the circle though, so 4K are going to have a kind of a difficult go at trying to get in the circle. It's so congested on the south and southwest side. Miracle, though, he's going to keep his eyesights on them, prevent them from coming any further and any closer to them.
And it's about now the adaptation as well, Monica. If 4K, they really need to move around this Corey side. I think coming down towards the south, doing what NIGMA here are doing, stepping into the zone and saying, hey, if we rotate around this eastern side, we know the zone has been more likely towards that western side. It's bounced back up to the north. Teams aren't going to be really on that more west or that eastern flank. It hasn't really gone there for most of the games. So we are going to try and make that risk. We may get caught out, but if there aren't players there, which we know there aren't, then they have more space to work with. And unlike 4K, NIGMA are going to get in a lot quicker actually, even though they made a longer rotation in.
Yeah, it's easy for us to say as the eyes in the sky as we see everyone down trying to rotate with oblivious information. NASR, though, running on foot down the hill from the teams up above them. A little bit treacherous journey, and that's why it's so hard to rotate in Sanhok. We do see that circle, though. It hard shifts down in the southwestern side, so all these teams on the north, on the east, they're going to have to come in. And finally, we see 4K. They are taken out. Pick probably a bad spot to come in off the back of NASR into this circle.
Yeah, and you notice, as I say, NIGMA, they're still alive. They've still got room to work with, right? So NIGMA making a much better rotation here, and I certainly like what NIGMA are doing, considering that they were one of the furthest teams back, right? They started all the way on the opposite end of this zone. So for them to make these efficient rotations is very welcoming to see from them.
As you see here, major pride. They were able to take out triple esports before on top of the hill here. We're just getting the little cut of the action as Frozen pushing up and does get his little two-piece to finish out this team out in 15th position. Now Pride getting on their little scooter, on the little motorbike, and trying to find their way because they're one of the furthest teams from the circle, trying to rotate in as we pan onto our favorite player, J9, who has been in this compound for the last probably 15 minutes.
He doesn't need to move. As long as J9 doesn't move, no one knows he's there because there should be no real need to check down there. J9 is going to have a very difficult time. Of course, he knows that there are many players by the sound cues around him. So right now, yes, he may be safe, but he's got a lot to work with when it comes to coming in later. He's going to need that time. Maybe something he's going to be lacking because he has to now wait for that perfect moment. Frozen no gonna go down to NIGMA. Is NIGMA slowly making their way in? Catch out one of Pride on that entrance in. OOREDOO also gonna trade back through YALLA, who are one of the strongest teams right now inside of this next phase. They have this compound towards them to work with, and you can see that OOREDOO trying to navigate in towards these buildings is so difficult for them, especially when you have this terrain and all of these players encompassing around you.
Oh man, Arito Thunder is just under fire from Twisted Minds up, taking all the control on the western side. POWR, they're going to be looking on and try to deplete 90th minute out of this match as they're going for the quick clutch revive on the side of the mountain. This is why Sanhok so hard to rotate, because the information you have, it's only good to about the next mountain, right? It's not like Miramar where we can see eons and eons away. So anybody could be anywhere, third person perspective peeking at you. As we see POWR pulling a grenade, he's cooking it a couple more seconds and trying to find out where these players are hiding behind the trees. It could be a good one, but it just falls a little bit shy.
Had it bounced on top of the rock, it would have bounced down onto 90th. Yes, a second one. That one goes over the top. It's only a molly though, so it won't do any damage to 90th. They get to revive back off, and 90th back on their feet. Still though pinned to that rock in POWR. They still have the power in their hands because 90th, they can't move from this location. You can see them beginning to spread out. It's what they need to do to try draw fires away from two of them, at least try to get one back. They send a defensive molly over to try stop a separate angle, but it's just not enough. They just have that lower side. They don't have the information, and you can see teams like Now Twisted also taking shots at them and being able to find those angles.
Major Pride, Nomi. If it's one player you want alive from your team, it is this guy right here. The Molotov comes out into the center, and there's at the complete mercy of Enigma Galaxy as he's put down on fire, and it's going to be a GG's for Nomi. Major Pride. They've got one player left alive. Lord is so impatient and just running into the fire. He's like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going for it. I'll be fine.
I mean, it doesn't matter, but that's 10 seconds that you waste.
Yeah.
When you could be now inside of the zone, you could have had other players. It's very bold of Lord, but he gets it off anyways. Just does not care about his own safety. Does not know how to play with fire correctly. Rato striking down the match of themselves as POWR says, here you go, I'll light your own fire to your funeral. It's POWR. Also, though, in trouble. The only one stepping back onto Kante. The zone is on beside both. It's now Rat gonna succumb to the zone. 90th minute as well. There go POWR 2 to the hands of Twisted Minds as all the teams begin to drop. Phase 6 begins to take his prisoners.
I mean, it was inevitable, right? Like, he was just going down one by one, just could not get their numbers back on up the circle. Actually, only Enigma Galaxy is going to be in that little compound that we saw that they took from Major Prize. So finally, I think Enigma Galaxy, they're like, okay, guys, we need to actually shape it up here. This is finally our game. We're going to go for the big one that we know that we can play. Up on the northern side, though, it's about to erupt. The Team Conqueror, they're taking their fight against GEEKAY and against the only one.
But the only one, they've got the zone behind them. It's the wrong type of blue. It may be the blue in color, but they're looking red and dead as Conqueror have their number. Gallagher will just wait and watch. Is the only one fall next down to our final 7 teams. YALLA looking to try to defend, but Twisted Minds. Fidan is there. Now comes Boomper. The second jumps over the window. Sneaky beaky like takes down Boomper as well. Fidan pulling out some Yawaz magic from his hat, takes down No Saif with the help of NASR. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but there's nothing that YALLA can show for it.
Nothing to show for it indeed, as the circle is getting so much more smaller. Twisted Minds, though, they're going to be way outside the circle trying to find their way in. If you don't already have the circle, it's going to be GG's for you if you can make it in Conquer, though. They came off the back, clearing out all the teams on the northern side. Now trying to come down the mountain and try to get ever more closer to Enigma Galaxy. They have that little bit of high upper ground, but they got a lot of solos surrounding them on the back end side.
He's a long nade to Conqueror trying. They might have found Freak as well. He's tanking down the blue. Freak has nowhere to go. Will fall. Will give away the point at least to the play zone. But that zone! It doesn't matter because here comes a nade. They were throwing those long ones. I didn't think they would get it, but that's the nade. That's the Kobe shot that Conqueror needed. Now that zone opened up. NASR stepping forward as well. Only have Miracle left, but here comes Groza, also from the side, and Conqueror. They know that they have this game, but Fairweather falls at least maybe one more for Miracle as the blue zone comes behind them. Maybe looks for a second, but Conqueror all over them. And Conqueror take down the $1,000 and they take away the setup, the first one of the PMPL Arabia.
This is one of those teams that finished out in, I want to say, third place from the league play standings. We haven't really seen them do that much today so far. So finally coming in and getting the fourth chicken dinner of the day. That was in Sanhok, collecting up that 1K and saying thank you very much.
Look, I think it was from Conqueror's position. Of course, that nade is fantastic to be able to get themselves that position. But you also look towards the setup that actually Conqueror were able to make again. They kind of held back a bit. They kind of slowed their game down towards that phase 5, phase 6 point. I do like the aggression to get into that position, but I like also the patience once again paying off for these teams. And it's those who are found in the center that struggle the most. You can see it, particularly Sanhok shows it the most when you have those 40 players inside that late of a point as we check out those match rankings to see just what happened in that bloodbath, Monica.
I mean, love Shack or hate Shack, I'm not really sure because, I mean, we had Enigma Galaxy kind of all stack up in there. Enigma Galaxy, they went down within a matter of 5 seconds. They had that one that was outside by the rocket, knocked by Conqueror, and then it was a knock through the window and an immediate grenade afterwards that took them out. So it left them scratching their heads like, what just happened? So even though they finished in about third position, they really did not have that many elimination points. And because of that, they only finished 6th technically in points from that match. But great job to conquer Iraq, getting the chicken dinner, 9 eliminations found, and 24 points to add to their tally.
Road to Glory, NASR also having those good results. As we check out that next page and see who didn't perform as well. Well, 4K, there's a big shocker there, down in 16th position, a pole position squad. Not picking up anything from that game. R82 struggling. And it seems to be that shift. Actually, Sanhok has been that breakout game. We kind of suspected that Sanhok could shift, I think, the momentum. But it certainly changed it quite a lot. If you also want to do well in your Sanhok games, get the energy on your side, you can do so with Monster Energy, our official drinks partner for the PMPL Arabia. Monica, we know we love it. Monster Energy, there we go. But they talking about energy, as we say. I think that realistically, Conqueror stepped up a fair amount compared to those previous games.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe Conquerors. They all took their monsters, they all drank them, and they all fired themselves up for this Sanhok match. You definitely need a lot of energy to keep up with how much action is condensed on the small map of Sanhok. Let's see if they're able to keep it up for our last match of the day, which is going to be coming up next for Erangel. Maybe we'll see something different to shake things up. But let's go ahead and review those highlights from this last Sanhok match.
Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is when you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up. You witnessing a champ in the making, fueled by your passion for greatness. Yeah, but adversity and bad situations meet us in the middle of the paths that we taking. But it's what you do after that makes men. Will you quit or will you stand up and face it? Tell me, do you have what it takes to swing back when this life asks for the fade? Can you tell me you'll adapt to the change when a punch lands and it puts you flat on your face? After you wake, will you stand up and say, get mad, hit back, lit match to the flames? Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is when you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up.
One more Erangel match here for the first Super Weekend day in the PMPL Arabia full split. Myself, Pilot Wolf, and Monica alongside us. But if you're wondering, well, how are these teams taking those chicken dinner wins? It's already off for Renault 7 down below with upgrade performance and upgraded fun. Celebrate your winning spirit with the brand new offer Renault 7 Pro 5G, the designated smartphones for PUBG Mobile Middle East and Africa Esports 2022. Monica, we just saw CONQUEROR take that Sanhok match, the first one of the tournament, and I think in devilish style.
Yeah, CONQUEROR, I mean, we have such high hopes for them, and they definitely have a huge organization backing them in the Iraq region. So they are, I mean, this is the CONQUEROR that we know, right? This is the CONQUEROR that finished in 3rd place in the league play, and they're finally showing up. So jumping back up, this is 4 games under their belt. So the scores are still close enough where one chicken dinner, like CONQUEROR is able to get, is going to skyrocket them all the way up in the standings.
Yeah, as well, when you look towards that shift as well, NIGMA finally having a good game to show for themselves, Monica, definitely did exceed expectations coming in. I think, well, you kind of expect them to have a good game. It did shift, I think, overall in those standings too. I think the surprise was actually those teams that had been performing well, right, in the first 3 games, didn't do so hot when it came to that Sanhok game. Of course, it was always going to be a bit spicy, though, when you have 40-plus players inside those final zones.
Definitely. So we're going to our last one, and this is really going to set the tone for the rest of the weekend, right? If you have a team that didn't really do well but can do really well this game, they're gonna feel real good going into the second day. So let's take a look at our overalls and see where these teams are sitting right now.
See who is it going to be in that pole position? NASR still in the way of that top spot. 4K, that 0-pointer did really hurt them. 57 points there is RTG. Still very comfortable, though, in that 3rd position. Of course, in a Erangel game already under their belt. Gotta see if they can do that one more time. They're in the bottom of that 8th position, though. 90th minute. They're also working their way slowly up to that top.
This is really showing how consistent NASR and 4K have been. No chicken dinners at all, but they're constantly placing themselves in that kind of top 5 or so placement points and getting so many eliminations right here. Even though Twisted Minds has the most, their placement points has not been as consistent. So we're sitting 57, 50 points, and these are 2 teams that, if you were to ask me before today started, which, where do you think these teams are? These are not the 2 teams that I would have picked to be number 1 and number 2 for sure.
I mean, I would have said to you, NIGMA, GEEKAY,
CONQUEROR,
like at least CONQUEROR is top 5, right? I mean,
Yeah.
our rate, I expect it to be higher. Major Pride, aren't even in the top 8 that I think we expected coming out, particularly Major. Having been such an aggressive team, I think, is Twisted Minds that have been that older aggressive organization competitor to saying, well, look, step down. Grandpa's back here and he's ready to perform.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at the second half, though. See where those teams, where in the world are those teams now? Major Pride over in 9th position. I mean, they're getting there, right? Enigma Galaxy officially not in the last place position, but barely by 1 point. And it was that last game. I think they finished in 3rd place, had quite a few elimination points, able to redeem themselves a tiny bit, but still 15th position. That's gotta hurt.
15th, at least that little bit of an extra bump gets them above Rad. Rad also struggling, of course. I think only getting about those 12, 13 points. Enigma, Rad, Triple, all of these teams that haven't really got that 20 points, even OOREDOO Major, they need to make sure that they're getting more here, because an average of only about 20, 25 points a game, if they assume have a bad game on this last match, is not enough to be able to secure yourself a consistent result coming out of the Super Weekend. When you're looking about 60 average per day, or per Super Weekend, should we say, it's not going to get them where they need to for those finals. They need to find more. Finding more in game as well, you can do too with the Grizzly Bear card collection. Join the card collection draw and win outfits. There's a chance to get all the pieces of an item in one go. Of course, let us know in chat on all the social media as well using the hashtag PMPL Arabia. Which of those items would you go for? I'm still down and all for that entire tournament for the Bear set. I mean, I am looking at that parachute though. I've got to say, it looking pretty fire.
I mean, these players do too. They like to pick their outfits in accordance to the map, right? Just kind of that next level. Hey, for Erangel, I'm going to pick a super green, outfit or super black outfit. For Miramar, I think the Grizzly Bear would be good for the Miramar, right? Really blend into the sand and just be kind of unidentifiable to these other teams that we're playing against. Let's take a look, though. We are on to our last match of the day. Erangel, where are we headed to?
We are headed down through from that Stabber Hill all the way through to those Everest side mountains too. It's all about the high ground for that playing path. Got to see where these teams drop in. A fair kind of playing path for the most part. The only teams this really kind of hurts is actually OOREDOO, who do drop towards that Sanhok Island. You could argue as well, mainly that Milza side could be an issue. It is only a short drive. It's not going to be as harsh as I think OOREDOO, so they may have to change up their style here in this final match as one of those only teams to not find an easy way to their own location.
Let's recap. We had a Yasnaya circle. We had a Milta circle. I think we need some love on that kind of northern, western, that side, really. Just to balance, the karma of it all, right the world. And it's going to be centered right onto GEEKAY. So, I mean, these teams POWR, they're going to be really set up in the central area if they can quickly loot up. They're going to have the first pick of the cherry of best locations to rotate onto. What other teams are we looking at who might be able to set themselves up real well in this match?
I'm probably really looking at the rotations for that northern side, right? YALLA have a really nice rotation into this first phase zone. 90th minute had quite a nice rotation into this first phase. You're also looking at, I think, actually, a really legitimate strategy could be crossing down on the South Island, coming back across that western bridge. Because that plane path, Monaco, went so far north, no one's going to be on that South Island right now. So if you're a team like Rad, you're a team like 4K that is far from this zone, why rotate through that main belt? You know it's going to be contested. Come down to South Island, come back up across that western bridge, as we say, or take a rotation and come even as far down as Primorsk. It's still inside of that phase one. Very much a safer rotation that is going to get you still in the zone quicker and safer than had you just taken a straightforward path.
It was definitely a good decision-making from OOREDOO Thunder. They usually go down into the military base, couldn't go all the way over there, find themselves on the western side, but we do see, of course, we see 4K, one of our top contending teams, surprisingly, in Super Weekends, right off the bat. finding members of Rad, and it's going to put Rad, wow, this is not how they wanted to start the match, losing 2 players when it's not even 3 minutes into the match.
A very disappointing first day, I think, for Rad in the Super Weekends. They are in 16th position right now. You can see those live standings on the top of your screen. They do flick by throughout the game. Rad, I'm not sure really what they need. I mean, they looked okay, right, when it came to the first 2 days. I think the thing that really helped them get, of course, into the Super Weekend was that 30 points at Erangel match they had in the 3rd game of day 1. That really did boost them to get here. They haven't really shown too much outside of that, I think, in terms of big games, big pointers. So today, you may not have expected it, but I still expected more of a veteran organization like ROD, who have been playing every PMPL Arabia since the inception. So they are just, I think, a little bit behind the cards when it comes to these other teams.
Another team that's a little bit behind is going to be Enigma Galaxy. We've been talking about them all day long, having such great spots like Pachinki, like El Pozo, down to, I want to say it was Sami and Sanhok. The only good game they really had today was that Sanhok match that we just saw. All the other ones, they've been out in 11th place, 14th place, first as in first out of the match, not first place, but that is another team to be so strong in the region and to come off league play in #1, that see them like this is really just so disappointing for us. And hopefully we see a different kind of Enigma Galaxy for the rest of the weekend.
Right, and I think when Enigma need to turn it up, they will. I certainly think that we're not too scared right now. We are still very early days. There's tomorrow. There's still the Saturday to go. So they don't have to worry too much in terms of getting the points now. They can still make it up in the next 10 games. It still does affect them overall. They are going to, I think, struggle when it comes to having to force plays maybe more if this does continue. But you can argue that at least that Sanhok game does take the pressure off them a bit. They did have that good game, so getting those extra points does bring them slightly higher in the standings above RAD, who both, of course, need to improve. The other teams, really, that we are looking at improving, I think, who are still the veterans that we expected coming in. Also, GEEKAY, Major Pride, another 2 of these orgs that both are new, both are inceptors into the PMPL Arabia full split here, but they need to, I think, show us more of what we saw in the league stage.
2 teams that really surprised me are 4K and Twisted Minds. These are the teams that are currently in your #1, #2 spot. You know, they're playing like the veteran teams that you just mentioned should be playing right now.
Yeah.
They're constantly just in that top 5. I think one game 4K went out a little bit too early, right? And it was just, I mean, they stayed so consistent. They don't even have a chicken dinner, I believe, at this point. So no 1K cash money for them, but it's just, I mean, they're setting themselves to be really playing comfortable for the rest of the weekend and into the rest of the Super Weekends if they qualify for that, you know, prize pool that is just for the Super Weekend standings.
And that actually brings me back to something I just remembered right now, Monica, which was when you looked back in the spring split, they didn't make week 1, they didn't make week 2 Super Weekend, but see when they made week 3, they actually didn't do all that horribly. They did pick up about 100 or so points throughout that entire Super Weekend. So now to see them do it, I think is more of a surprise because they are making a Super Weekend first off the bat, but they actually are used to getting points when it comes to these Super Weekend plays. In 4K, as long as they continue to be consistent, not just this day, but this weekend, and get back into more Super Weekends, we are looking at a team that maybe who have learned a lot through their mistakes in the last season are coming up as one of the strongest teams maybe now.
I hope that they aren't going to get too targeted by some other teams, right? Like the Super Weekends, that's where the points count. If another team like Enigma Galaxy or like CONQUEROR, some of these teams that haven't been able to perform too well and they want to climb higher in the permanent standings of the Super Weekends, if they can do something where 4K doesn't qualify for the Super Weekend, that is their chance to kind of climb up above them. R8, we do see YALLA driving right through their myths, and it's going to be the long-range challenge with that 3x scope on the M4, just missing out on this team.
I think moving up a Good point there, right, about the hot drops. It's something we're not going to see, I think, realistically, to about the third Super Weekend there. CONQUEROR as well, unfortunately losing one of their players. Tam, I believe, should fall here very wide open. Does have the vehicles, but we've also lost CONQUEROR here. Groza, actually. So as a whole, this for 90th minute, picking up a double there for CONQUEROR, forcing him further back from this play and forcing him further away from really that more Ferry Pier hillside that they were looking to initially control. But to go back to my point here, Monica, of those hot drops, I don't think we're going to see it on Erangel Miramar, but if you want to see it before, I think, week 3, Sanhok, one of those games that I think these teams really could go for. The only, I think, risk is why teams not doing it early on in the tournament is because you still could go out in 16th position, so they still have a lot to lose, whereas if you are in that lose-lose position at the boss in week 3, you know that you have to go for those plays, and regardless of what happens, you either will make it or you just won't, which is why those teams do those more risky plays later on.
Yeah, it's not just the hot drops though, it's also the, hey, in the game, we rotate. We don't know what the team next to us because of vague information, but if we're able to find an elimination, get that information to them, we know who it is, we're going to be maybe a little bit more aggressive. I've seen teams do this before, where if we can dwindle them down, like after that first day is really the benchmark, going to the second, you know who your weak point teams are to try to prevent them from qualifying. We see the circle there. It's going to shift all the way over to that western side, and look how much water is in this circle. This is reminding me of a Miramar game from day number 2 league stages, where it was just constantly out in that area, and people, they have about 50% of this map that they can even play.
And this is a very interesting zone where Everest actually is such a fantastic position for information play. And I would expect YALLA, as any team, to really step back, rotate onto this position. NIGMA also chasing here. GEEKAY is both of them make that immediate rotation across through Gatka Fields. NIGMA are slightly better off. Satan forced back here behind the camper van. Will avoid here the side of Lord as they step up from behind the ridgeline for now, and Satan, there's nothing he can do. Here, Enigma get away. POWR even cannot stop them. And it is a clean rotation, at least for now, as Enigma finally, they will lose 1 to Dar. As I may have cast a custom there, but 2 and the majority get through, but they may have gone now too far as OOREDOO. They're on the other side.
I think that they were so focused on the fast and furious drive-by shooting at GEEKAY that they just kind of forgot, like, at some point we need to stop and probably focus on getting in the circle. They drove a little bit too far, right into the clutches of POWR, and now OOREDOO Thunders up on the hillside, just looking down at them if Enigma Galaxy can quickly park their cars in a way to protect them, get inside, and avoid getting any more knocked.
You mean we can't go too fast, too furious?
Can't?
Is that?
This isn't a driving simulation game?
Is this not? Oh, I thought we were in a different game right now. I mean, look at it, Enigma. They find GEEKAY, they come across, now they go forward, they at least get, I think, 3 players over the crate yards. But, I mean, I wanted to see a little bit more. I wanted to see them go to OOREDOO Thunders. Just remove the skill. Who needs skill, Monica, in this game? Just, it's all about the action. Who needs it
at all? Well, GEEKAY, like, they drove their car right parallel with Enigma Galaxy, so you might, it was just like shooting in normally, right? He just kept his trail. He didn't really have to move anywhere. He's just shooting straight, and he just kept, you know, exact same speed, exact same trajectory, and it was a pretty easy shootout out of the car.
Look, I mean, GEEKAY, they're going to definitely suffer. I think they've had a quite poor day, to be said. They still have 3 players left, but it doesn't solve their situation, right? They've still got a lot to do when it comes to crossing in this zone, particularly if it continues to shift towards that western side. Triple making that inevitable rotation now before we may have to do it later. They're taking up this more western coastal line. 90th minute are also in this location and have begun to stop them. They've taken down Ahmad, but Jabal Yazan stepping out on either end, and you're trying to see these players of 90th minute find the flanks, but Triple, they can't be felled just yet. Jabal can't really step over because Triple, they're staying together, so that's a smarter play to do and avoiding actually being caught out by those flanks as a result.
Triple Esports, they have a good position looking down onto 90th minute. But 90th minute, they can, you know, they have the open areas to the edges. This is their backyard, right? They land down in the Severny area. They come up here. They know the coastlines here, and they have a lot of room just to back up and get away from Triple Esports if they want. But we do have a little bit of an overwatch. We got Tam-Tams up on top, might be able to pick off Triple Esports if they try to ascend the hillside.
And Tamtam's position is crucial here. Tamtam goes down, Triple just move in, they wipe the floor with 90th minute. They're way too separated. And as a result, you do see two come back together. There comes the third, and Tamtam will just be staying back to try deny Triple following that rotation. But as Triple don't do that immediately, Tamtam gonna kind of watch behind the back again before moving on as well. And 90th looking for that more kind of middle position of that zone. It has gone very far down to the coastal line, and it is going to create a lot of problems. Is Nabo. Oh my days, that was the closest helmet crash I've ever potentially seen. SK Tongue goes over. How did none of them fall?
Give him a little haircut. That's what happened as Enigma Galaxy finding some of the members of YALLA, finishing off Rauf. I mean, they need to get Freak back up on his feet ASAP because they have the other half of YALLA still on the outskirts. Looks like Freak was just in the opposite building, not quite close enough to go for the revives as self-naded. Or actually, no, Rauf did come out in the back and find it onto YALLA.
It was a beautiful assassination, wasn't it, for Rauf coming in on that side angle. Saif maybe gets another taste of his own medicine. No, goes round the wrong side. It almost caught Saif, but Bumper's now there as well. Both of them sat together, but Bumper could be in line for the nade if another one comes. No, it's NIGMA going straight full force in, finds the one, finds a two-piece, coming from two different angles, and that's Enigma we wanted to see. The 5 eliminations for them is 4K also top of the standings too, in their own fight versus the only one is Luffy. Is the only one remaining, is a loose split apart. Finally will go down as Odenok, the beautiful pinch.
4K is so good about spreading themselves out and finding the different angles and choking out any oxygen that their enemies could possibly try to breathe as they're going to be coming up close. They've got Conqueror just lingering in the distance of 4K. 4 eliminations found already so far. We're at the 15-minute mark, and they are showing us why they are at the top of the standings, and they're not going to stop anytime soon. 90th minute, Triple Esports. The fight is breaking out on the coastline.
Triple, they tried to follow 90th, maybe a mistake here. It's the next mountain top, but Triple, they lose result as a result. Tamtam now steps further back as they try to group back up towards more of a front line of Triple. That was really the main problem. I like Triple idea. They are trying to do strategies where they're going to bring in and surprise 90th, but the problem is 90th, they didn't move forward, they moved backwards. So actually Triple, they just walked one of their players into essentially death. And as a result, Triple's still in the same problem, but one player down and a zone about to shift potentially away.
Enigma Galaxy on the back of their fight with YALLA, where they're able to clean up. It's going to be Pride this time to storm the compound and try to take it away from them. And Pride, this is another team that, I mean, they should be doing well, but they're not quite doing well yet. Enigma Galaxy, Hamady, Ashing pushing up a little bit. Pride, they just kind of dipped their toes in the water, but now crashing up on the compound with Road to Glory. This could be very, very bad of a push here. And let's see who is going to open up this fight.
But Road to Glory, the very split though, Monica, they lose one, they lose two on the staircase. Major, they make it work for themselves. They get the 2 eliminations. They're going to finish off Bolts. And Molly does almost take down Unknown. It was Nomi there trying to find the extra one. They will be able to grab Unknown and Road to Glory. 3 of them all wiped off the face of the planet. But they have a long distance to go. Keep in mind, them and Enigma, the furthest away from that southern zone shift is R8. Also in some dire trouble. The smoke's protecting Prestige for now. The Conqueror, they know where they are. NASR know where they are, and R8 Prestige falls.
NASR finds the little ankle that was poking out of the smoke and puts an end to this team, now shifting their sights onto the other side of the road where Team GEEKAY is located at. And remember, we got Twisted Minds, one team that has been doing so well this first day so far, just lingering in the distance. I mean, them and 4K, it's really everyone's like, I want to stay on the opposite side of the circle from these two teams because they're going to be putting up the numbers and putting everyone down in the grave.
I would much more be a fan of Triple, of 90th. 90th are even doing well. I think stepping up majorly from the league stage. Triple also at least having those ideas. They haven't come to fruition in this first day, but certainly playing and experimenting with what I like. As OOREDOO also try their best, and they went way up into the sky, but so do OOREDOO here. Is they're trying their best, but 90th finally will fall, and it was a split away. The one falling for 90th in the information at least being given that there is a team here behind them.
It just seemed like such a discoordinated push. You know, honestly, two of my players, you know, not really able to, you know, overcome this compound. Triple Esports really down to only 3, hugging the kind of southwestern side, but sharing it with 90th Esports. These are two teams that not really done well so far today, but I mean, this is definitely a hillside they cannot share at all.
90th have got a brilliant position on the edge. I mean, they don't really need to move. Triple at least have some advantage now because the zone did shift towards them. So actually 90th, who were controlling everything at Triple were doing, the coin immediately flips to the other side, and Triple are the ones now punishing, and with the help of OOREDOO, actually losing that third player really hurts 90th because they lose a lot of the plays that they can make of talking about splitting off, trying to find the extra angle, because they only have 2 to work with. They need to stay together, and the ability that one gets knocked from the poke, the other needs to be there to support.
Support indeed, and what these teams are needing to do is start keeping an eye on the circle of the battlefield one more time. Triple Esports, so 4K actually helping 90th minute by being a thorn in the side of Triple Esports. They really just don't have that much cover at all. NASR finding the one limb onto Hamady from Enigma Galaxy. So again, Enigma Galaxy, I mean, they had an okay, pretty decent game in Sanhok, and it's just not able to, not able to use that momentum to put some numbers up this match, as I believe they're going to be only 1 player left alive.
Major also slowly making their way down. We said them and Enigma have to get down to this southern phase shift. It's all, of course, this zone in favor of Twisted Minds. They are the ones who control this final few phases. POWR, though, control Major Pride's position, and they won't give it up so easily. They are the smoke road being laid in down. POWR having to step back as well as behind them. Also comes down NASR. So again, the escape options for POWR are being limited, and Major have some extra leeway, but they do lose Nomi, which will force them back for now. And again, by that time that POWR need.
Major Pride fighting a literal uphill battle, trying to take this compound where POWR is at. And keep in mind, this is still not even within the circle at all. So both these two teams kind of chokeholding themselves out, fighting for nothing really beyond just taking the other team out, going for those eliminations, as we do see a knock come out in the back end side. Rad, everyone falling down onto their knees as 90th minute, and Rad are eliminated out. Milky Way, he's trying to push through, he's trying to find that entry knock to open up the fight with him and POWR.
As well, their POWR finding one through the smoke, but it's straight on back for the against the side of Pride, and it will be the 1-for-1 trade. But it's the extra members here from Pride as versus POWR is Major Pride. They actually took a separate rotation here, Monica. They went for the anti-fight. They went for this distraction to then allow Yen. So sacrificing the player to get the majority through. Very smart play from Major, and it gets them further ahead, whereas POWR took the bait. And now you can see that they're falling to these other players around them.
Oh man, it's the last player of Enigma Galaxy, Raouf, through the shack, finding, just watching POWR as he rotated and picking off and capitalizing on it. We have NASR. Remember, there's another team that's doing so well today. Just a little bit up hand. They're going to be trying to third party and pick off some of these eliminations too, but they're setting themselves up pretty well, but soon they're going to find themselves in a sandwich because we've got GEEKAY on one side, Twisted Minds on the other, and all these teams down below them like CONQUEROR.
Triple Esports biting the dust next as the zone coming to its 6th conclusion. CONQUEROR going to lose an extra one, but it's to the hands of Enigma also. It looks for Major Price. Also going to fall down. 4 eliminations for them, but only in 8th position. A disappointing day for, I think, major fans. But OOREDOO, who also need to step back up, facing the Titans, there are 4K Esports, and they have truly been ultra high definition plays. I may have cast a curse to though now is Golden going down in OOREDOO. They may just look to make this steal. ONANOK can't step further back. The molly is there, and it was that beautiful molly into nade pinch that looks maybe to take down the second. Barely misses. They go for the risky revive as OOREDOO will look for not the fight, but a way out as Anaconda looks to strike back.
4K, they just key. I like the split over here. Yes, they have two players very, very close to this team of OOREDOO Thunders, but GEEKAY, they're now having to fight the likes of NASR on the edge of these rocky hillsides. So hard to ascend, but Hope is going to continue to keep them on their toes, going for a flush as the rest of NASR is going to be spread out over the mountainside. Miracle, he's got a nade. It could be a good one as he lobs it over the top.
Ooh, but goes wide. Ragnar not caught. A Miracle still in the problem with Satan and Hope, who are quite literally snaking their way in the grass down towards the observatory. Miracle maybe moves a step back. No, won't go for the aggression. Satan doesn't really have the healing by the looks of it. Doesn't maybe want to stop to heal with the zone, of course, behind GEEKAY, who so desperately need to get in onto this zone, but so do NASR. Both now opening fire. Miracle went flying into the air, and that's not what you want to do right now, but it still works out anyways. Finds out Hope with the extra almost information from the angle of the height that he took. In Miracle sliding down once again. Can he turn a second? One slip too many. Yes, it is. And Kante punishes, but straight back down by Conqueror.
This was just it was painful to see because this rocky hillside just put an end to all of these teams just kind of sliding up and down the rock side, and it was going to be POWR to get the last lap, taking out one of the players of NASR. Now it's going to be only a couple of these solos left on this northern side as the only two full teams left alive of course, 4K and Twisted Minds as they turn their attention onto each other.
Twisted Minds still, keep in mind, in control of this zone. They've been here all game. 4, make it 5 eliminations for them now. Coupled there by NASR, but NASR will be struck down. 4K take down their own extra elimination point, and it's down to our final 3. The solo of OOREDOO is 4K. Try to navigate upside the hill here. Struggling, as many would do upside the hill, but it's still at least alleviation from the pressure that Twisted Minds have of the control of this zone is gone towards them. And really, what can Twisted Minds not have in this game? They have been given everything.
Everything. They don't even need to, play those mind games at all with these teams because they have an airdrop as well, late game airdrop right in the middle. Then they can replenish their armor, their meds, everything. 4K, they know that there is a solo somewhere over here, and yep, exactly, caught in 4K. They're able to find this last solo play over OOREDOO Thunders, and it's going to be 4K now against Twisted Minds, a good old-fashioned 4v4 to end the match. Anaconda still spraying out in the distance. He knows the smoke. There's probably somebody hiding in there at all, so it's really about who can get this first opening knock and turn the tides into their favor.
And this is what I love done by 4K, spreading out, utilizing those players. Monik, you got ONANOK, the big, bold smoke rotation straight in front of all of Twisted Minds. Where's Golden? They're going for more the sneaky route. Dari, Anaconda following behind. ONANOK is that distraction. So as long as ONANOK is drawing the eyes of Twisted Minds, the rest are rotating here to the side. Twisted Minds, they equally do know something is up, right? They know that their firing has stopped. They know there may be something sneaky going on here, but they don't have maybe all the players over. Finally sending Fidan, the secondary, over to the other side, alongside Anis, who is the controller of that flank.
The flank is coming out. All 4 of them still kind of staying on the general same side with them, but I like how Twisted Minds, if you can send someone a little more further south, kind of cut off any sort of cross over the top from 4K. A grenade does come out. Very opportunistic, just a nick of damage, but just a little bit too shy. I mean, when we have the 4 versus 4 at the end, it's always this kind of long drawn out in this open fields here. It's whoever can have the better angle, whoever can come around. The first knock does come out. 4K on to Twisted Minds. 4 versus 3 now. Hopefully, Yes.
Anna's going down as well. That's a secondary big one. Onanok finally falls there. The damage may be returned, but Ragnarok drops as bullets fly out the gun as fast as he falls too. Dami is the only one left in 4K. Naded in front. Can they close it? It's a 2v2 remaining. Golden and Anaconda. They've lost all of the players. Finally kill through the elimination points as Twisted Minds. Dami looking to search for a golden and runs a tree, but the zone is behind Dami. Dami's taking the fire. Dami got nowhere to go. In 4K, take the chicken dinner.
4K, this has been a long time coming. We've been waiting for them to finally come out on top with the chicken dinner. And that was so surprising because at the very end there, it was actually Twisted Minds who had the circle. 4K was all outside, but somehow Twisted Minds just couldn't defend and couldn't keep their players up. And I think those 2 nade knocks right off to open up the fight, that was so crucial. And it was just 4K overrunning over the hill and just laying on the pain on the Twisted Minds.
It was a mega match for 4K, and I think really a step up for the organization, for these players as a whole. Monica, these were not the players that we expected. They came here into the Super Weekend, by the way, in 16th position, only 45 points. By golly, did they upsurge themselves from those 45 points. They completely turn into a different team today, taking those $1,000, I think, very much deserved out of any team for the consistency that they're showing. Bar, I think, that one Sanhok match where they did slip up.
That was just, man, like I said, if you were to ask me which teams before today would have ended up on top, these were definitely not my first picks of the entire lobby. But it was just so surprising, the teams that I think not to take away anything from 4K or Twisted Mind, but to have the teams that would normally do well, like Enigma Galaxy, like Major Pride, like Conquer, not really show up today, really open up the pass that they could put up those points, 4K and Twisted Mind.
No, I think as well, you have to give respect to, as you say, Twisted Minds, who have also had equally, I think, a phenomenal day. They were struggling, I think, in the overall aggression department coming through from the league stages. But today, they stepped up. And as we check out those match rankings one more time from our game number 5, you can see that 4K on top, 27 points, 12 eliminations alongside the 7 for Twisted Minds. OOREDOO Thunders, though, was an important 3rd place finish for them because they were struggling when it came to some of those recent games towards the end of today. So getting back on board, getting those points, very crucial for them too.
Enigma Galaxy, even though they went out way too early, right? They still, once again, only got 1 placement point. The 9 eliminations they found, we saw it in their drive-by with GEEKAY. We saw them picking off eliminations onto, I want to say it was, who was it? I think it was POWR, like right in front of them, stuff like that. They were really able to actually have an actual pretty decent game, getting 10 total points, and it was all because of those eliminations. So, I mean, great job to them. I think this is, the start of the comeback of Enigma Galaxy. That is, we usually see them up on top, and they've so far been in, 15th place before this match.
Yeah, about 8 to 10 points is the average that you kind of want per game to at least have a comfortable position coming out of every Super Weekend. GEEKAY also alongside CONQUEROR, they're managing just that. I think it was also a very difficult game for a lot of these teams. You saw it was a battle of inches rather than to beat squads when it came to moves. And a lot of the positions, I think, of these teams did actually finally benefit those who came closer towards the zone. Minus Twisted Minds, who already had that zone from, I think, what was it, phase 3, phase 4. Everyone else had to rely on their current position and how far they were into that next shift to be able to leverage what they had given to them.
Definitely. Let's take a look at our second half, though, and see where these teams, how they did in this Erangel match that we just saw. Major Pride, again, just second half, and I want to say they were 9th or so in the overall standings, so just once again to have just 5 points is not enough. And I mean it's kind of the curse of those teams like Enigma Gaming, like Major Pride and all of that. It's just when you do so well, like that is what is expected. So even when you have just an average game, it's just like, wow, it's such a bad game for them, even though they did just kind of basically average.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's about those average games that need to improve as we check out those overall standings as well. A unfortunate showing from those games from some of those teams on the final match, but Yalla, for example, still up on top overall as they finish the first day in 6th position. But 4K, gotta say it once more, 77 points from that first day of games. 1 chicken dinner to their name, $1,000 on top. Looking like, Monica, the team that people need to dethrone now.
Yeah, 4K has taken back their top spot from, I want to say it was NASR who was above them just before this one. But these 3 teams is just, wow, what an underdog story where they just flew completely under the radar in league stages, got here, and just suddenly, maybe they drank 2 monsters, each of them, and they just woke up. Chicken dinner for 4K for Twisted Mind. NASR number 2 without a single chicken dinner. That is just insanity of how very consistent they've been playing all day.
I think actually 4K remind me very much of the full split last year R8 when they were formerly Rico and Affinity, and they finished, I believe it was a full Offsprings, but last year they got about 16th position, Monica, in the end of the Super Weekend, and they barely made it into finals. They performed relatively well, but come the next season, and we get to see R8 here on that second page, they really stepped up, and they were, as we say, that dominant force that no one could take off the top spot. Now, R8 struggling a little bit to get to that top spot here in the first day of games, but as we say, not too much to worry about. I think overall, we'll start panicking maybe tomorrow if we see these teams again at the bottom.
Man, at the bottom is just pretty shocking, I would say. I mean, it's if you took this and flipped the standings, right? Like
yeah,
9th was first,
right?
2nd through R8, that's what you would expect. And you showed me, like, did somebody, like, put the formulas wrong or something? Because this is definitely not, wow, this is not what we were expecting at all going into the Super Weekend. So all eyes on this bottom half for tomorrow and Sunday to really just do a complete 180.
Yeah, I think NIGMA, they did pick up a lot of the points on those final 2 games to get those 23. Of course, 3 points average for the start of today. They cannot afford that tomorrow. If they have another day like that, again, any of those teams have another day like that on the 2nd, the 3rd day here of play, we are going to struggle. And I think it's all about, especially in this first Super Weekend, Monica, building those leads, giving yourself that cushion that you need, and saying that if we potentially miss maybe week 2, maybe week 3 of the Super Weekend, we're still all right because we did well on that first weekend.
Absolutely. So these teams, I mean, this is a lot to digest, right? And we talk about kind of making sure you're preparing yourself outside the game too. So all these teams are going to go back and they're kind of watch back the game and see, oh, this team went here, this team rotated this way, and just prepare themselves so they're not going blind into the second day. And I think some of these teams, especially the ones at the bottom, need to do even more homework than teams like who are doing well, 4K and all of them. But the teams at the top, though, they need to beware. They're like, everyone has a target on our backs because they want to take us down from the very top to climb above us.
Look, it's been a fantastic first 5 games. There's 10 more fantastic ones to go, though. Same time, same place tomorrow with yourself, Monica, joined by Imperium back on the desk. We will see you guys there.
النوك والفينش لسكواد الرعد، وبدايه موفقه على كل زاويه، لكن منير ايضا بينزل نوك اوت. كانت بالدمج، والدمج كان واصل للثيرد بارتي، وواصل لفكره الحسادات الوحيد المتبقي من سكواد الرعد. الراجل صاحب الاسقاط ب 600 دمج بهذه اللحظات بتعداهم راجل. نفس الوقت صف التحدي من كل طرف. جينا المتاخر على خطوط فريقي بهذه المباراه باور على المركز التاسع، واسلوب اللعب وعلى شيء جديد علينا بخريطه مثل ميرامار، وحتى لو انه بالليج بلاي والفايت عم بيكون يعني شوف.
Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is when you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up. You witnessing a champ in the making, fueled by your passion for greatness. Yeah, but adversity and bad situations meet us in the middle of the paths that we taking. But it's what you do after that makes men. Will you quit or will you stand up and face it? Tell me, do you have what it takes to swing back when this life asks for the fade? Can you tell me you'll adapt to the change when a punch lands and it puts you flat on your face? After you wake, will you stand up and say, get mad, hit back, lit match to the flames? Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is when you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up.